The July 11th board work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Ms. Jenkins?
Here.
Just so everybody knows, Ms. Jenkins is online, and she's at about a 5-second delay, so if we can appropriately give her the opportunity when we speak to, you know what I mean, for that. And the next is can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I can't hear anything.
We're doing the pledge. Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Jenkins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, the first topic is Board Policy 8600, Transportation. Dr. Rendell.
This is a public hearing, so you need to open it up for public hearing to the public.
Okay, we're opening it up for the public hearing for the public.
Yes, so does any member of the public wish to comment about 8600?
Does any member wish to speak about this policy?
Oh no, I'd rather go home and be the first.
Where's the timer? I should go under 3.
I got it
if
right
that
here.
helps.
I'll tell you
Okay.
when you got 30 seconds left.
All right, perfect. Let me know when you're ready.
Go.
Awesome. I was reading through the proposed changes to the transportation policy, and I have a significant concern about the addition of number 16. It states, quote, in cases where a student with physical disabilities is unable to leave the area of a student stop without assistance, the bus driver operator shall not assume responsibility for such assistance except in an emergency that threatens the safety of such student or students. Now, I do understand that this line comes from Neola, but I also understand from being in your policy meetings that you don't always agree with Neola. So I'm asking for clarification on what that looks like, because what I envision it looks like could lead to a student panicking, experiencing trauma, and or being left in an unsafe environment once the bus driver leaves in that student stop point. I fully understand that bus drivers only have X amount of time to go from stop to stop. However, if this means exactly how it sounds like it means, which is potentially leaving a helpless student on the side of the road, then we should have some system where the bus driver reports this to dispatch, or there's communication with the student's administration so some check can be done to ensure safety. We don't harp much on stranger danger anymore, but this could put our students at risk of kidnapping or harm. I know we think in terms of every student seemingly having a cell phone these days, but that just isn't the case, especially in our elementary schools. But also, our students aren't going to think rationally if they're experiencing anxiety or panic. So even a student with a phone may not be able to use the tool to actually protect themselves. I want to be wrong in my interpretation of this section because it comes across not just as ableist, but also unnecessarily cruel. From my perspective, it just looks like another example of the board potentially approving a policy that's written poorly and when implemented actually harms our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Curvin. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this policy? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Just a public hearing.
I don't have one. They didn't. It's off. So, anyways, go ahead, Dr. Rendell.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. We will, am I on?
Yep.
I
Okay.
think so.
We will take that input into consideration. This is policy language, and then there's implementation, so administrative procedures. So we already do have administrative procedures about what a bus driver is supposed to do in a situation like that. So we'll review that and make sure we're not going to leave a student in a vulnerable position on the side of the road or anything like that.
I'm wondering, Dr. Rendell, if, make sure I'm on, if that language doesn't come directly out of statute, so can we get that clarified before our next meeting? That would be great.
Yeah, we'll check and make sure that if it's amendable, then we'll amend it to something that's a little more specific, and so we won't leave a student on the side of the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So, any other questions on the board transportation? Paul, I'm going to ask you, the next topic is going to be the board policy 0118 through 0172. Do we need to allow an individual from here to speak on each one of them?
No, this is the first work session stop for the board discussion of the proposed changes.
And so, public discussion, no. Do you need me to give a motion on each one, or do you
No,
just
no
need me to
motion
say?
on
That's
any
what
of
I
them
thought.
yet.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Thank you. So the next topic is board policies, bylaws 0118 through 0172. Does any member wish to discuss any of those policies?
Yes.
No, we're not taking public comment, Ms. Kervin.
Oh,
sorry.
Thank you.
It's our first chance.
Thank you.
It's under.
Thank you, Ms. Kervin.
Mistake.
Just laid that out. So,
It wasn't clear.
yep, Ms. Campbell, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I had the same confusion because I thought because it was a public hearing, this was going to be our first public hearing, but this is actually our first chance to look at it work session. So, board, if I was going through, I think there's some changes we might want to consider that maybe weren't exactly our intentions, but might not have been super clear. So, I'm just going to go through. I don't know if you want to go through any. I mean.
No, start
Yeah,
at 0018. We good?
118 is the first one and was my first concern. I actually agree with several, when I was looking through this myself, with several people mentioned today about why take the part about the Constitution out. I don't know why Neola didn't list that because we were created by the Constitution and not necessarily Florida statute. And yeah, they're a little bit of a synonym, but I think would be an easy fix to put it back in. And then, but as far as the desires to me, to address some things that people said this morning, I don't see that as a conflict because we as a board have an obligation to always be looking for the educational needs of our students. But this, to me, this language in this item B is more about how we do our jobs because we have statutory requirements and then we have things that the community wants us to do, but we can't always do what all the members of the community want us to do. Quite frequently, the desires of the community conflict with one another. So clearly, we can't make everybody happy. So to me, this is just the way of saying we can't make everybody happy. So when we're going to do the best we can, we are the elected authority to make those decisions. So I don't have a problem with that. But I would like to put Constitution back into this one.
I too am in favor of adding the Constitution for the state of Florida.
I don't think, flip yours towards you.
It's not on. Okay. I too am in favor. I'm not sure why that was struck out. I guess because Neola's recommendation was that. I have an issue with the word desires as well, and that's been brought up in public comment. Can it be both? Can we have needs and desires? Does it have to be one or the other?
It's your policy.
All right. So, I mean, I would say I think it's good to cover both because we're trying to achieve both. We're not going to be able to do that 100% of the time, but the needs obviously are
So you want needs / desires or?
Or needs and.
Needs
desires.
and- Okay.
Should it be educational need? I mean, I guess we could put both of them back in there. Yeah, we probably should educational needs because we're not meeting like all your other
Right.
needs. So that's fine. I'm good with that. Everybody good with that?
I'm okay with all of those changes. Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Ms. Jenkins, I'm not sure if you heard, but they're working on a couple of changes. Did you hear them, and are you okay with them?
Yeah, I can hear you guys perfectly fine. And yes, I'm fine with those changes.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. I think you have clear direction.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Let me just, I'm just
Okay.
getting them on the agenda here. If you guys could-
Sure.
All right, does anybody else have any of the other questions to any of the other policies that we're going over today?
Oh, yeah. I got a list. I was just trying to, rather than do the whole list. No, you're not taking a picture of my notes. My notes are not public record, much less your record.
We'll just run through it this way. How about we
Thank
do
you.
this?
I'm
Does anybody have a question
Here.
about board policy
Just kidding.
0121, responsibilities and authority of the
Yeah,
board?
I don't have something on every single one, but I have several.
I figure if we
So
just do
yeah,
it this way.
121. When we talked about this, there was one member of the board who wanted us just to list all of it. I just want to go back on this one, and several of these I have the same thing. Is this what we really wanted? Did we really want then for the whole entire section of the Florida statute, Constitution and Florida statutes on school board authority listed in this policy so that now it's several pages long and will have to be revised every time the legislature touches these sections? So is this really what we wanted? So that's my question on this, and it'll be the same question when we get to some of these other items.
I would say I was the person that wanted to make that happen initially, and I would say that if they are, that we would want to refresh ourselves on each time that it happens, and that was the reason. Many of the other policies that we have, I was not, I did not want to put them on it, but what happens is many times the policies change behind there, and we don't actually know them, we don't talk about them, we don't bring them up. And I think that that's the reason, if you put them all in there, that it not only tells you when it needs to be changed, but it's also a really good reminder for people who are looking out there to what our roles and responsibilities are, including new members and everything else. So that's the reason I put it there. I'm in favor of keeping it. If there's any other discussion.
I too am in favor of keeping it because I do believe that it forces this policy to be reviewed anytime a change is made. And otherwise, I don't know that necessarily will, because we're finding that a lot of our policies haven't been touched in a long time, even though statute has changed and the law has changed. So I'm in favor of keeping it also because I think sometimes people will go and look at, our bylaws and look at our policies, and maybe they won't go look at the Florida Constitution and find this stuff. So I think it helps on two fronts. I know it's a lot to have in there, but for those reasons, I would be in favor of keeping it in there.
And I would remind Ms. Campbell that in the event that this comes up on each one of them, I'm still in favor of keeping them in all of them. That way we don't have to keep, yeah, if
Well,
she has
I'm
more
gonna-
of them. I just wanted to kind of mention. I
I'm
know,
going to
but
ask.
that just, I know that's coming because I
Alright.
now can see some of your notes over here.
Stop
So
reading my-
the
this
thing
is
is
why I
that
write.
I'm not cheating. I just wanted to make sure that I covered everything with due diligence.
Well, I mean, if there's three, I mean, we can save ourselves some time. Not all of them. That's the only thing. I have other issues. Stop reading my notes.
You pointed at them. You're like, here we go.
Here we go. So we have to have humor to make the word bearable. If there's three members of the board who will go ahead and say right now, if I'm fine in every place that we put statute, including the place that we made the policy 32 pages long,
Yes.
that you want it in there, speak now, because I'm going to bring it up almost every time. Not every time. Sometimes it only added a paragraph. But
Ms. Campbell, I would remind us that we have a very large reading and initiative that we are promoting here with the Brevard School Board. So if we can promote our constituents to read also, like we do want all of our children to read, I would enhance all of our policies to be in line with
all
our
right, so
strategic plan.
Mr. Susan wants to leave it all in, always.
Always. I'm in favor of leaving it in because, again, I think it forces you to look at that policy every time it's changed, and otherwise it could be overlooked for years on end, and that isn't beneficial for the board.
Mr. Trent?
Yeah, for leaving it in there, mainly to, I like what Ms. Wright said about many people who come to and read our policies, but won't go to.
Flip it towards you.
Yeah.
Nobody. But
won't mind, I
mainly for that reason.
Okay.
They'll come here, but they won't go elsewhere, so it'll be here, and it'll force us to revisit these policies also.
Okay.
All right, so I think we've got direction on there. Is there anything else on 121 that you would like to bring up, Ms. Campbell?
Nope, and that takes care of 122, 122.1. I'm good till 124.
Let me, is anybody up for discussion on, or have a problem on 121.1? No? Hearing none, we'll move on. How about 122? Hearing none, move on 122.1.
Sorry, I'm scrolling.
No, that's okay. Tell me to slow down. I've got the mic right now, and I feel like we're at
You're ready to karaoke?
I'm ready.
All right. No, I got to get through the 32-page policy, so hang on, I got to scroll for a minute.
That is the one. That is the one. 32 pages.
It's also double spaced.
I
don't know why.
think-
And some of it doesn't even
I
apply
think we
to
should
us.
have it as part of our reading initiative. I think we should make first graders. My son's there. Make him read it.
That might be a heavy reading for them. All right, sorry, I'm still scrolling. Is there a reason why it's double spaced versus?
Probably how it copy pasted.
Okay.
Because then it could only be 20 pages.
Yeah, we could narrow it down. Cut some
Listen.
pages off. It's true though. That's part of the problem of getting through this. Oh my. Still scrolling.
There should be a little thing on the side here.
I'm trying to go.
So are you at 122.1,
What
member
page are we?
powers? Page 101.
122.1. Okay, here we go. Member power? No, that's the one that I'm
Oh,
scrolling through.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you get through that
Oh,
one?
I got
This one. Oh, yeah. That's
So if we're good on 122.1, the next one's 123, Standards of Boardmanship Code of Ethics. We good on that one?
Yep. Oh, how many bookmarks am I? Oh, there. Jeez.
I'm good till 124.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that one.
All right. We're good on 123. Mr. Trent, we're good there. Miss Jenkins, I apologize. Are you good to 123?
Yeah, don't worry. If I need to interject, I will. I'm transitioning into my house, so I apologize.
Okay. All
But I'm
right.
good.
Okay. I'll just wait for you to respond then. Next one is 124, Standards of Ethical Conduct. Ms. Campbell.
Yeah, so some of these are not necessarily correct. I just wanted to point out on F2, so yearly we have to do our 4 hours of ethics training, which, by the way, I'd want to, if we can get that scheduled sooner rather than later with our, like we did before with our other people from the county and municipalities to do that training together. I'd love to get that rolling. But there was an item in here that is going to be in addition, and I actually like it, but I think we need to make sure we include that as we, in our annual, whatever we do, and one of our offsites, as we should review our board working guidelines, but then also this F2 that says members of the board are also required to complete training annually on the standards of ethical conduct established in this bylaw.
Love
so
it.
that will be this is a good thing and something we should do, not on the 4-hour day, because that won't apply to our other entities, unless we want to do it in the afternoon of that day, but I think that'll be good for us to go through that.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, if you're not a part of it before, we have in the past, I asked Paul and everybody, I said, hey, why don't we ask all of the other municipalities to come to a thing and just do all of it together and make it fun. So the first year we did it, we had our general counsel come out, and she made it fun, like questions and Jeopardy, and everybody had so much fun. It was a little bit competitive. Things got a little crazy. You put a bunch of politicians in an area with an award, and that's what Mrs. Campbell is responding to, is saying, hey, we might want to do that again. I'll get with staff with that, and thank you so much for reminding us. Besides F2, Ms. Campbell, is there anything else that you wish to talk about on this item? Okay, now I lost all of my.
We're on page.
Yeah, hang on, I'll get it back. It usually will pull it for me. All right. Anyways, 1, 2, and I apologize.
131.
There they are. 131, legislative policy making. Does anybody wish to discuss this one?
Yes, something happened here. So we had a conversation around item 3, notices. Because of the new law that says we don't have to publish it in the newspaper, we can use online services.
Right.
We said we wanted to change shall to may. And then this policy came back to us with every single shall changed to a may. And I don't think that is gonna work, because a lot of those shouldn't be may, they should be shall. So I think we need to look back through, because what I'm remembering from my notes is specifically we're talking about number 3 with the notices. Everything else still needs to be a shall, because I'm pretty sure they are shalls and not, like it says right above number 1, board adoption of policies or revisions to policies may be pursuant to Florida statutes. That's a shall. So I think maybe that was just somebody accidentally did a find all and replace rather than just fix the one. So
Which version are you looking at? Because mine doesn't.
the red line
The
version,
red line version.
Okay.
it's page 147.
So all right.
See all the blue language?
Okay. Yep, you are correct.
So, Ms. Campbell, would you be willing to offer to get back with staff and go through those and make those recommendations and let them rewrite it and come back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm simply saying right now, the only one that should have been a shall turn to a may was under number 3.
Yeah,
Is that the only one that you were concerned about?
Mhm.
All right, let's do that. So if we can change that, that might be a good one.
That's
And bring
the-
it back. All right. Next one is 133 quasi judicial. Do you have anything on this topic?
Nope, I don't have any until 1:30.
Anybody else?
no.
Okay. 141 number.
That's such a weird title for a policy. Yeah.
What?
It's just
Number.
called number?
Number.
I know, 141. It's in regards to how many members we have.
I mean, it should be number of board numbers, but
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm willing to go number.
What is the actual number?
141.
Okay, no.
The board shall consist of 5 members. It's just basically saying,
Nope, I'm good.
I know how you're a big fan of going to at-large districts. So, 141.2, conflict of interest.
And my only question was, do we want the whole statute? But you guys have already answered
Yes.
that.
I know.
142.3, orientation. Hearing none. 143, residence areas. I think we're good there. 144, term.
Yeah, everything's fine there.
And Rana sent us yesterday the packet from Neola, and I checked it to see if any of these were on there, and this one was, and it made the change that they made. So they actually used the 12-year language and just changed it to 8. So we're already good.
They might have actually listened to us in our board meeting.
Or they listened to the legislature that just changed it to 8 years. So, but
Hey, I did want
More
to.
likely.
we
I
can
did-
take the credit.
I I did want to say, I didn't want to give Paul any of the credit for doing any of these statutes, these policies, because Rana is the one that really worked through them. So I wanted to say real quick before we forgot that Miss Rana did all of the work, and I wanted to give her full credit, and
Thank
she's
you,
amazing.
Rana.
I swung by yesterday.
And Mary Jo. Yes,
Mary Jo, too?
back,
Yeah,
Yep.
Mary Jo,
See?
too.
They have. She's in the very back.
So thank you to
Thank
Miss
you.
Mary Jo and Miss Rana for doing all of these policies. This is a huge undertaking. We appreciate everything that you do for us, so thank you. And that Paul Gibbs had nothing to do with it. So 145, filing a board vacancy. Anybody on that one? Filling a board vacancy? All right. 147, compensation.
Yes.
Oh,
All right. What do you?
what are you worried about our compensation?
Well, so the language that we put in there, and sorry, this is
Here, I've got
such a
mine.
big
I don't
one.
mind if you look
You're
at
on
my
page
notes.
243 is the red
Thank you.
line.
So the language we added says, any fees associated with an organization will be paid out of a general fund identified by the CFO, separate from the individual board member budget. Our intention was these other, like the chambers and
Right.
things like that cost money. But the way we worded it with an organization could include our, like FSBA and our Florida School Board. So that needs to come from our board member budget pretty much is our membership to those organizations and our travel and our conferences to those. So I think it needs to be separated out, because otherwise, just read straight as it is, any fees are going to be paid separate from her. So then we can spend that $5,000 a piece on whatever we want, and that wasn't the intention.
Well,
So I think we need to clarify with other organizations rather than it's the separate from individual board member budgets, because that is our board member budget predominantly, is our membership and our conference fees.
so the fees in our budget are another conversation, which we will have here fairly shortly. But as we look at these fees in here, one of the issues that you have is that somehow our budget that we had proposed years ago has shrunk, even though we didn't have discussion about it, to where now it's at 5,000. We used to have a higher threshold because we had both FSBA fees. I also was a part of the Conservative Coalition of School Boards. I also had gone to conferences. That was well above the $5,000 mark. So I just wanted to say I'm okay with it being that way, and I think that once we get to the organization of our own budget in a month, it'll redo that, but I'm okay with however your direction want to go. I didn't want to limit us to, or the reason we put this in is we did not want to limit us to any specific organization based upon the fact that our fees, we hit our max fees, that's all. And that's happened to where we have to start giving to other people based on it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a problem because I brought this question up when we were talking about FSBA and the concern that I can't join another organization because that takes majority of the funds for FSBA. And am I going to attend it? And there's been times already, even this, since we've been on the board, where we're having to ask, can we use money from yours for travel or this or, things like that. And so that's where I don't know how we alleviate that problem. I think that the intention there was to give us a way to alleviate it without having to do that, but I don't.
I think,
So that's a budget discussion, but to me, the language here is saying any fees associated with an organization, which I would interpret as any organization, is going to be paid out of separate accounts. So then what is being paid out of our individual board member budgets? Our board member budgets have been restricted to travel, conferences, memberships. We're not spending money on other things. Like, we don't have P cards where we can go
Right.
and buy things. We don't have like the county commissioners where they get a boatload of money and then go spend it on whatever they want within limits. But it's for things, it's activities that we do related to memberships of organizations. To say anything we do with an organization is outside of that eliminates the whole purpose of.
but there's been other cases where members have funded certain things outside of an organization or travel over the past 6 years that I've been on the board. There may be something that you wanted to fund that's, inside your district. You have a little bit of funding to do so. That was okay when Deskovich and all, and that has not been redefined. So listen, I hear you that you have some concerns here. If the idea is that you want to pause on this and then we have it as part of our general budgetary conversation, that would be more appropriate. I'm okay with that. My thing is I just don't want restrictive amounts when we start running into some of the things, because it just,
Yeah.
Well, I do want restrictive amounts, because I think if we set the tone for we set the tone for fiscal conservatism with our budgets and responsibility and accountability. And so, and you know, a budget that never gets really put out in the public unless somebody does a public records request is the board budget. What are we spending our money on? It's very small, and I think it should be small. I hear what you're saying, and I remember those days before I got on the board where there was a time when every board member got a chunk of money and they could use it for whatever. And it actually, when we look at that, did not go well. There's a reason why that wasn't repeated.
It went fine on me.
Because then board members are picking winners and losers and picking, you know, which schools are they going to grace with certain gifts. And I don't think that belongs. To me, that's not a great idea. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about money that we spend on things that's part of our compensation. This is a compensation policy. And I'm not saying that every board member should have to pull everything out of their pocket, but since this is on compensation.
It's in the wrong area.
Yeah, we can have that discussion separately, but our compensation, part of our compensation includes memberships to organizations. And that can include the Florida Coalition of Conservative School Board Members. It can include FSBA. It can include, if we want to, if we need them separately from the district, the Chambers of Commerce or other organizations that might have a fee. But this is about compensation. So if we want to later talk about board members having money to do other things, this is this conversation. And I think we added a sentence that it causes more confusion and not more clarity.
So I would say that I'm okay with keeping it in, but as a respect for a fellow board member who may have some discussion over it, and we're coming up on our budget where we can have a larger discussion, I'm okay with punting on it, kicking it back, and coming back to it. I mean, the bottom line is that we don't need to have an open budget to go sign up for everything.
Right.
And we are accountable for everything that we sign up for public records requests and stuff like that. I just didn't want to have it to where if Ms. Campbell wants to join something that now I have to come over and ask you guys in a public meeting and all this other stuff. It just becomes ridiculous. I think both sides. I feel respectful enough to where I know that you will always be fiscally conservative with your decision making, and that is appropriate and checkable by the public. But I can see it, so I'm good. You guys want to
So,
pause on
Paul, if we push this one down to continue to work on this one, what does that do as far as our timeline goes?
It would have to come out of this pack that's going, because we've advertised the whole group to move to public hearing at the next meeting and final approval at the meeting after that.
For that, I'll just tell you, I'm probably still because
No.
that's just no.
Our
But
school board
that's
should.
me. But I'm just saying, not everybody is in a position to be able to do that. But we need to make that clear, because to me, that's what this is saying.
All right, so I'm just going to say this. If you're part of an organization and they ask for a fee to go to an event that's part of that organization, What we've done in the past, and this is the same with the Space Coast League of Cities and others, is that our school district reaches out to them and pays for the fee for that dinner or whatever
Right.
it is. That is incorporated with it, because I'll be honest with you, what fears, and for me, is that we have somebody that cannot pay for those, and they would feel like, well, I can't go to it because, you know what I
Right.
mean?
And that's
you're
a job
doing two
expense. I mean,
things.
honestly, that's something that you probably wouldn't be doing unless you were a sitting school board member. So I feel like that really should come out of a district expense.
And
But we
have
probably
a
need to put
process
some
for that.
parameters on there, because some of those are like fundraising dinners that are like 150
Well,
bucks
that's
or 250
no,
bucks a
yeah,
pop.
that's
not,
a different.
that's not building relationships. I mean, it is building relationships, but at $250 a pop,
Yeah,
you
no,
know, ticket,
I
plus your
fund-
spouse.
yeah.
I'm not cool with that. We could, that's what I'm saying. We
Okay,
could,
so this policy
this
needs
could
to be
trail
pulled.
down a long
Yeah,
way.
this
There
policy.
needs to be a budget. There needs to be an amount. And if you want to go to 10 chamber lunches at the cost of $300 and that comes out of your budget, fine. If you want to go to one high ticket whatever, then okay. But I think there still needs to be a limit to those.
Okay, so then I think this one should probably come out, and we should talk about this a little more because it sounds like there's.
And I would argue that I don't think we've ever supported paying for a spouse anywhere for any event, for any.
No,
just so
it
you know.
needs to
So
be the
like, I
school
don't want
member.
anybody to think that we've ever done that. So, all right. So I think we're
Do we
gonna.
have agreement to pull this one
Yep.
to work on it further?
Yep. You good, Paul? Pull it,
Yeah,
and we'll bring
I
it
was
up
just
during the
thinking,
budget.
Can you stick in approved by the school board and fix that sentence?
Yeah, you can. That's where I was gonna say, because if
So
we
they were to
approve it,
read any fees associated with an organization and approved by the school board will be paid out of a general fund.
I like that because
And
it
then
has to come
You
back.
guys can say, you know,
Yea or
Ms.
nay.
Wright wants to join two, FSBA and the other one, and, or all of you do, the board, it comes as a board item. It
But it's
gets approved
still
by
the-
the board.
We all
It's still the general funds identified by the CFO is separate from the individual board member budget. I'd rather figure out what amount do we want to put in our board budget and just put it in there, and not every time we want to do something, then Cindy's got to find a way to pay for it. That's the problem that I'm having. Because that's the sentence we put in, is Cindy's got to come up with a way to pay for things that we're just going to come up with it with what we want to do, rather than saying, if our board budget is too small and we need an extra couple $100 a person so we can be a participant in those things, then let's do that. But I don't like putting it in the policy that Cindy's got to come up with a way to pay for it when we get a wild hair and want to do these things, when we should just plan it. So maybe our budget's not big enough. That's a separate issue, but I don't like us having to come
I
up
think
with
we're
it out of
against.
the board budget.
We are. I mean, I think if you say with board approval, that does kind of it alleviates it, because then we can say that what you're saying right there, Ms. Campbell, and say, hey, no, this wasn't planned. I don't think it's a good idea. But there might be a time where there's a circumstance that we do need something different that's outside of the norm. And
That's true. And to be honest, I think of like COSPA, the FSBA is part of now the new national organization, which is COSPA. We don't have budget for any of us. If we wanted to go to the national conference, like next year it's in Dallas, I could go stay at my mom's house, but I'd need the fees
to fly there,
and
ticket all that.
and the registration. So
I like Paul's suggestion. I think it does.
okay.
And it'll be a check and balance, because if the board feels like that's not a good move to make, or we're being irresponsible with how we're spending money, then the majority of the board can step in and say, no, thanks, that's not a good idea.
Love it.
So Paul, great
It could be,
suggestion.
also, you could add in there if you wanted to go further, general fund or that fund account for board costs, and then it's based on your approved budget.
I don't want to have to come back for board costs that are inside our budget to get board approval to spend $25.
It's got to come to the board for approval if you add my suggestion. It goes on an agenda as a budget, as an item. So at some point during the year when renewals come up, like you guys do now, who's joining what, it would go down as, yes, we're agreeing that all 5 of you are going to join both these organizations or whatever, and the board's budgeting that. on
I
my
like it.
suggestion.
I personally think it creates transparency too in the public's eye, so they'll be able to see the things that the board members are part of and the money that's being spent there. Well, I'm one, so.
Yeah. So after the phrasing, with an organization and board approval. is
Yep.
what-
And board
Okay.
approval, so.
That's fine.
I'm gonna, for anything like over $200 though, Paul, I'm not gonna have somebody come in and say, I'm going next week to a
We were
meeting
almost
for
past this
$25.
We need to put that in the board member budget. We don't need to put that
Yep.
outside of
Oh, I
the
agree
board
with
member
you.
budget.
There you go. Perfect. All right. You got that, Paul?
Yep.
All right. Now, that was 147, compensation. We're now on to 147.1, travel and per diem expenses. Everybody okay with this one?
Yep.
All right, seeing
Yeah.
nobody with that. 148, use of equipment and services.
I didn't have any issue with this one.
Good.
I'm good till 165.
All right.
So.
149, access to records.
Hang on. Thank you for your handy dandy trick, Paul, on how to get there quicker. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, but the side's not loading up very easily. either.
Yeah.
Maybe I could make that bigger.
All right. Sorry. Hold on.
Good. 149.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that one.
Okay. 149.1, public expression of members. We're good? All right. Here, public expression of members. Next one is 154, motions.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with
Good.
that.
164, notice of meetings. 165.1, order of business. See note on red line page. You good? Okay. 165.3, special meetings.
No, that was one of the ones I had that was
Okay.
about the whole statute, but you guys already said yes, so we're good.
Okay. 166, executive session.
Just to back up,
Uh-oh.
1651 on the note, I
I
want
know.
to alleviate the note. Are you guys good with removing the 24-hour thing there?
What page is that?
Hang on, we'll take a look at it.
So it says the revised policy mandates at least 7 days for
I love the fact
primary
that it's put
materials
in note.
associated with actionable items must be provided.
Yeah.
Does board still need to include 1?
165.1?
Looking for this
You're on
section
page
in there.
306
Yeah.
is
It's
where
going to
the
be
notes-
307 is where the red line starts.
Board still needs to include 24-hour.
Come on, now my whole computer's.
So what it basically says is,
Yeah,
Do
we're
we-
kind of conflicting.
Right, yeah, we have it's required to be no later than 7 days prior to the meeting, but the last sentence, which we struck it out because it conflicted with the
Right.
7-day requirement because it says everything has to be provided at least 24 hours in advance. So
unless
it-
agreed to by the board chair and
I thought
or,
it said like if at all possible or something like that.
yeah. hang
Oh,
on.
we changed the 7 days. It should be mailed no later than 7 days.
This is for regular meetings, right? This is-
Yes, there's a
Right.
different
Right.
provision for special, and that's 48 hours.
Yeah, I think you should strike the line out because it does conflict with each other. It doesn't make sense to have it say
Yeah.
that we're going to require 7 days and then 24 hours.
Right.
We're good?
Quick question though. And I'm just thinking about like when it comes to appointments of staff and things of that nature, would that impact this without having that 24-hour line in there?
That is.
There's an exception in our appointment policy somewhere that says these can be added, I think, the Friday before or something.
Okay.
There's an exception in policy specifically for that, so I would say that would control over this more general.
And I thought
Okay.
it was in this policy, but maybe it's not. It's in one of these that we look like there, or I think we
Yeah, we've already
definitely reviewed it. Like one of them was a staff recommendations, and there were a couple of things that are the exceptions.
Oh yeah, it's E, I think. Well, no, agenda special meeting for chairs.
We all good? Or you guys need more time?
No, I'm good.
Good.
We're good? All right. Get down here. Oh. Where were we on that?
You're on special meetings now, I think, right? 165.3.
165.3, special meetings.
Nope.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
166, exec tube session.
We'll fix it.
Thank you. And then, anybody on 166, exec tube session? No? Okay. All right, 171, review of policy.
Hang on, give me a second. one that says we're gonna, oh yeah, we're gonna go through our policies.
That's good. What we're doing here is
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm good with this one.
all right. 171.2, review of policy, philosophy and goals. Anybody on that one?
Nope.
171.3, review of policy, community relations. Anybody? Okay. 171.4, review of policy on ethics.
This is another one that I was just going to point out. This adds a annual review, so we want to make sure that whatever meeting we're going to go and review those other things,
Yes.
we want to add this on there too, in an annual ethics and whatever retreat of some sort.
All right. And next one is 172, visitation by schools of individual board members and legislators. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Yep,
I don't
that's the last
see
one.
any others. I want to say thank you to Paul for having others do the work. And thank you to our team
He's
for
not
putting
gonna stop.
together.
It's called delegation.
That's right. It's
I'm just
effective
trying-
leadership. I
trying
like
to
it.
give you a
Paul.
hard time here, Paul. But then I did want to say thank you to everybody because this is a massive undertaking and this is our responsibility in board. And what we just did was basically go through, how many total policies was that, Paul? Do you know? It's 30-something policies. So imagine what it's going to be like when I say, does anybody else wish to speak to this policy? Does anybody else? Can we vote them all in as one big bulk?
No.
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 We're
On
gonna have-
every one.
We're going to have to,
That's right.
we'll have to have a special meeting for that because that's going to be a fun one. So. I know. All right, we did. It's going to be fun. All right. Anyways, I want to say thank you to everybody. Is there anybody else that has any issues with any of our policies? Anything else regarding it? No?
No?
Okay. Next one is going to be budget review, budget update, July 11th, final PDF. Dr. Rendell.
Yeah, so the Chief Financial Officer, Cindy Lisinski, is going to be coming up and making a presentation to you. We are in the budget planning process. We are constantly in the budget planning process. The budget is a living document. It's a spending plan. It's based on estimates of revenue and estimates of expenses. So even though when we adopt our final budget later this year, the budget will be changed numerous times throughout the course of the next year. We have expenses come in higher than expected and expenses come in lower than expected and unexpected things. So the budget is, again, like a living, breathing document. We've gotten all our numbers from the state and started to put together the final budget. So Cindy's going to present to you where we are now. She's going to talk about some possible funds that we have available for possible things, but it's just all possible at this point. All right.
Okay, thank you. I just got a text from my daughter saying she left her dance bag in my car.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. No, that's fine. So like Dr. Rendell said, we're coming up to the end of our budget build for FY24, and like I always say that the budget is a plan. It's not money in the bank. It's based on revenue. It's based on, well, estimated revenue based on estimated expenses. So again, it's a plan and not money in the bank. But as we built the budget, we use these guiding principles. And first off, you have to make sure that we have ensure the health and the safety of all of our students and staff. And we also need to ensure that our goal is to improve student achievement and personal growth for everyone. So yesterday when I was bringing my daughter home from dance, I said, hey, Madison, what is it that makes you excited about learning? What makes you look like that when you're so excited that, wow, this is really cool? What is that when you're in the classroom? And she said, well, actually, I wrote down the quote because I thought it was pretty good. She said, a good classroom environment and a teacher who gets me. And I said, what do you mean by a teacher who gets me? And she said, well, if teacher's explaining a problem or a math problem on the board, and she explains it one way, and then she, you know, kind of looks at me and she knows that I think a different way, and then she changes the way she explains it, and now I get it. That's a teacher who gets me, and I thought that was pretty good. So we have to be able to do that. We also need to make sure that we protect the classroom and make sure that and the workforce. So the teachers, we need to make sure that we're taking care of the amazing teachers who are inspiring our kids and giving them that spark of what makes them excited about learning. And you know, the biggest challenge that we need to work on and towards is compensation for all our employees, because we need to make sure they feel valued, respected, and that's one of the things we need to do. And then at the same time, we have to balance all of that with making sure that we have a finite budget, and we have to make sure that we have the fiscal strength and the fiscal condition that shows stability. And you know, ESSER's going to be going away in a year. We still have a year that could be a safety net, but we just really need to make sure that we have a strong fund balance, that we have a strong financial condition. So these are all the things that we look at when we build the budget. And then this slide, you see quite a bit. And what I wanted to highlight on this slide is we get our funding from the state. We get the majority of our operating dollars from the state, and it comes, you know, in the FEFP, and it comes in like a calculation like this, and then we figure out what all the numbers are. And then you can see, though, people, when you look at the first page on here, it would say Bavard, for example, in 2019-2020, Bavard has 73,000 students, because this is FTE. That's how we get our money. The state pays us based on our enrollment. But you can see that if you go and look under the district column, the number is really 64,508. So we also have the charters, that's part of that total number. We also have scholarships, that's part of that total number. So, you know, when the public looks at it and says 73,000, that's a lot, or looks at the total budget and says, wow, you may not understand that there's other areas in there. The scholarship dollars, they never come to us. They're in our FEFP, but they actually flow from the state FDOE to step up for students. So we never see those dollars. Charters, we are a pass-through. We provide those dollars that are required to be allocated to them. And then again, we're over here on the district side. 2021 was the year that we had the pandemic, and you can see that our numbers went down. 22-23, that number right now is based on our fourth calculation, and 23-24 is based on the EDR estimates, and that's the estimates that the legislature used when they created the conference report. But one thing I do want to add for 24-25 is it does not include the new middle school. So that is not calculated into those projections. Any questions on this slide?
About homeschoolers.
The homeschoolers, it depends on what kind of scholarship or what kind of homeschool.
If they're taking a scholarship.
Yeah, if they're taking a scholarship, yes, it's under scholarships.
But if they're not, you don't count them towards the Brevard schools.
Not for budget.
Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't be in here unless possibly they're getting some services from Bavard, and then we'd get some of that FTE.
So, say for instance, if we know that we have 5,000, say, homeschoolers, just 300, and this year alone is 79,000
some of them may be taking, some of them may be like the fractions of a student.
Because what happens is some people look at this and they say, we have 74,000 people in the park. That's what they say. But what you're telling me is many of our homeschool numbers are not even ticketed and inclusive inside of this.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to move into some of the legislative actions that took place and that were signed. So everything I'm going to go over with the legislation are things that we talked about that could have or is going to happen. They actually were signed and they are in law now. HB1, Choice School, creates the Universal Voucher Program. So there's no longer a cap for the Family Empowerment Scholarships, and the Unique Abilities, FES, it has a new growth rate. It increased to 3%, and that should eliminate the waiting list. And it also clarifies that students that choose a scholarship are not entitled to the special education or related services under IDEA, and that's mainly because the money is supposed to follow the student. Something that came out signed in paper, or however you want to say it, came out that we are now able to use capital outlay funds to pay school bus drivers' salaries and benefits. So that is new. And we're also authorized to use flexibility with vehicles to transport students. I believe you used to have to use a bus. Now they're saying you don't have to use buses, and you can also contract out and use capital dollars. So it's interesting. So
And I think that law also allowed us to, we already can utilize smaller buses and smaller vehicles to transport students, which is something that I think we may want to take a look at.
We
Right.
actually already have, in the last year, authorized contracts with a couple different things. Like for our students in transition, we have those services already provided for the students, so we're not having a bus pick up one kid or two kids.
Yep.
Right.
What I was saying is that you may have a situation where we can transport students in not a bus, but an actual van or something like that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's opportunities, and I'm sure Dr. Rendell's got his head wrapped around it.
Right, and the point on this, and it's not clear on this slide, is you can pay for those things, those two bullets, with capital dollars.
I have a question on the IDEA one, just because I was reading that, trying to understand exactly what that means for us. Does that mean that if someone takes a scholarship, they're not going to get the full funding? Like if it's a student with a disability, we get more than just the base student. We also get IDEA funds for them.
Well, they don't.
So they're not going to get a scholarship worth all of that plus their IDEA money. That one's still a little confusing to me.
I'll try to explain it. The IDEA is a federal grant, and we do get additional money in the FEFP for kids with disabilities, depending on where they are. So they would get that amount of money, but they wouldn't be able to come here and get services unless. But they, and that's where we could have opportunities, because what the statute says now is before we used to say, okay, well, here's a half FTE, and then move around. But now the money is with the students, so the parent could say, you know what, I want to get this education or this thing done by the district, so they would have to pay us, contract it to us, and then we could, right, we would charge for that now, because they have that money, they have all the money in their bank account. It's actually
Like an educational savings account.
right, so they actually have that in the account, so now they can say, okay, I want to pay for this, and then, and that gives us an opportunity to create revenue if that's something we wanted to do.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Rendell, is there anything you wanted to add on this slide?
Not yet.
And then the Florida retirement system, SB 7024, that they made some significant changes. Basically, drop is you basically retire, essentially you retire, and then you are able to still bring in a paycheck. And while you're bringing in that paycheck, FRS takes those years of the retirement, and then you make interest on it, and they invest it, and that's how that works. For the last 15 years, the interest rate was 1.3%, and so this year they moved it up to 4%, and then for investment, people in the investment plan increased 2%. So the employer pays for it, so we paid for it, but it is a retention tool. It is good for our employees. And they also extended the time that instructional personnel and administrative personnel can be in drop. And the other thing that I wish I had sooner was that now, it used to be where an employee couldn't come back for a year. So like Susan Denyer left from accounting, and gosh, I really wish I knew where she put that, whatever, but they're not allowed to come back. But now
Even as a volunteer, right?
but she could voluntarily tell me where the. Yeah.
Right. Well, no, I just found that out this
Yeah.
year. I didn't realize there was a volunteer thing because we have some people volunteer. They can't come back and be a Take Stock and Children mentor
Yeah.
for a year, and that's crazy. So
Mhm.
that's completely eliminated, right? Like, so you can retire and jump in and be a school volunteer.
Yes.
It's my understanding that that is eliminated completely.
Okay.
Because if you retired from a state agency, you couldn't go volunteer your time at another state agency, not even the same agency, any state agency.
Right.
Yeah.
So if a retired police officer wanted to come and volunteer, theoretically, they shouldn't do that.
And that takes effect immediately for everybody who's volunteered in the last, who's
Sure.
retired. As far as-
Effect
believe so,
July
yeah.
1.
Okay. So all you people who retired.
Right.
Okay, and we went over this slide at the last, the April capital budget update, and we talked about how the statute in HB 1259 changed calculations a bit. So for the sales surtax, they changed how that's calculated, where they use the capital outlay full-time equivalent, the coffee, I guess they call it, versus the unweighted FTE. And the difference in that is the unweighted FTE is higher because it's all of our students, if they're in virtual, wherever they are. But the coffee only includes students that are actually in brick and mortar. I think I'm saying that right. Sue can correct me if I'm wrong.
I had that same question when we talk about that policy later today. I had that same question. What's the difference between the enrollment and the COPT?
Oh, she's correcting me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Just explain that.
So COFT is capital outlay full-time equivalent, and right now it's like about 59,800, so it's quite a bit lower than our enrollment. So enrollment covers, like Brevard Virtual is enrollment. COFT doesn't include Brevard Virtual, that type of thing. So the COFT is more of a student in a seat for a full day, versus enrollment is everyone who is enrolled in our schools, whether it's full-time or not.
So then the COPT wouldn't even include students who come into our schools for a partial day. So we're not even that. So it's
The number is determined by the state,
okay.
so it's not something that we calculate. So the state has a revenue estimating conference, and they come up with the statewide COFT, and then they allocate it out to the schools. So the definition is what I'm telling you. The calculation is something that is given to us.
Right. And then this will take care of my questions I have when we start
Okay.
talking about your policy. That amount, it's given to us by the Revenue Estimating Conference. Is it adjusted through the year, like our student counts, or is it like this is your number for the year, and even if you get 5,000 more students between now and the end of the year, this is your number? Because, and this is for revenue sharing, right? But as the charter schools, as their numbers fluctuate and our numbers fluctuate, is there a point mid-year where there's an adjustment that's going to be made? Or do we know the answer to that question?
I don't know that we know. I don't believe there is. The COFT comes out once a year, and
Okay.
they provide it to us. They give us an opportunity to comment, and then it is what it is.
Okay.
And we, frankly, for the sales tax allocation, we used the February enrollment of both our own schools as well as the charter schools. That was our process that we have been using since the program's inception in 2015. So this is a little bit new for us, and there hasn't been any guidance that I'm aware of. Cindy, I don't know that you've seen any either, but that's kind of our assumption on how this is going to work.
Okay. Yeah, that was my last one.
As far as the COFT goes, do we actually look at what our actual numbers are versus what the state is telling us our numbers are?
We do, and as I said, we do have an opportunity to object, and
Okay.
generally we're kind of like, it's about right.
It's about right, okay.
Yes,
I'd be
we do.
curious to just see what those are. And how long
Yeah.
has this been in process? Because you're saying this is kind of relatively new, so.
Well, COFT is not new. The use of COFT to allocate sales taxes.
Okay, okay. All
So
right.
COFT has been used for other things. I think there was some distribution of state capital money in the past that was based on COFT, and that's how they allocated it, the PICO money.
Okay.
I may be misstating that, but I believe that that's the case.
Okay.
We no longer get PICO, so there's really very little now that's based on COFT, but that was a bigger deal in the past.
Okay, and then we are able to potentially go back to the state and say, hey, our numbers are calculating significantly different if that were to happen?
We have an opportunity every year, right about now, to say we disagree.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we don't get to say our number is this and they adjust. We say we disagree. They have a cap that whatever the statewide number is, and so like if we get more, somebody else gets less. They don't just add because
I got
we've
you.
suggested that we need more.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and the key to that, the COFT number is lower, so when you do the math, we end up providing charters additional dollars than we did previously.
Just, I'll cover this later, but my estimate is we're going to be going from about 11.6 to about 14%. Somewhere in there.
And then the other change was the local capital improvement dollars that the districts receive every year. Now that's the 1.5 mil, and then in previous years, districts always received the 1.5, and were not required to share those with charters. And beginning this year, the 20% they're gonna phase that in over the next 5 years. So, you know, again, the charters, we will get less dollars, and you know, then in the first couple years, like the 20%, 40%, our tax rolls are also going to increase. So we probably won't be impacted that much. I mean, there'll be an opportunity loss. We'll say, wow, we coulda, but we still will probably we'll be okay. We would prefer not to have to do that, but that's the statute. And then you can see the calculation. We're still able to subtract out our debt service, which is huge. I'm glad we can do that. So we subtract out our debt service, and then we have to do the calculation to see, how much FTE per student, but on charter side and district, and then you see that there with the $911, so like per student it's $911 FTE, and then multiply that by the charter enrollment. And the other thing that we're able to do is we subtract out how much their PICO is, and then we multiply the 20%.
That's fair, because PICO is something that, while we got all the LCI, they got all the PICO, so
Right.
it was kind of a balance. So if I'm understanding, then we, at some point in the future, 5 years from now, that dollar amount for them would be closer, assuming all things are equal, to like $3 million something
Correct.
dollars rather than the 685.
Correct.
but it'd be at least, right. Well, and the tax rolls will go up or whatever, but if it had been this year 100%, it would be $3-something million that we would have to find something else.
Right, and this number is a little high, in my opinion. It's based on last year's PICO, and this year's PICO statewide is 213 million versus the 185 million. So I believe that the charters will receive a higher number than what's here.
Okay.
But this is probably the worst case.
Can you remind me what PICO, the acronym PICO stands for?
Oh my goodness, I have everything written
Sorry,
here
that-
except that.
The language of acronyms.
Capital outlay.
I
is
know,
the
I'm like,
last
okay, but what, I know.
Entity capital.
Education? Yeah. No one knows? All right, good. Well, it's not just
Oh.
me, all right.
Well,
All right.
Okay, so the next slide,
I need a
I'll get that
Public
for you.
education, capital outlay. Thank you, Google.
Okay.
So we were close. We just said that one word.
Okay, now HB 5101, Florida Education Finance Program. This is actually the conforming bill that aligns all of the legislation with the FEFP to make sure it all kind of jives. And then you can see we had significant changes to our FEFP. The top part is they repealed funding compression and hold harmless. They repealed the sparsity supplement, and they repealed the turnaround supplement services. And those are gone. It's no longer part of the FEFP. Now, they also repealed the instructional materials allocation, the reading instructional allocation, the teacher classroom supply, and the teacher salary increase allocation. So they repealed all those. And so, you know, and the way it is presented was this is going to provide us a lot of flexibility now because our BAS is going to go up so much because we have all this flexibility. But I said, did it really? And then you can see here that the statute was very directive in these categoricals. So although it falls under the BSA, we are required to set aside, you know, dollar amounts, and we obviously need the dollars from. They changed the name to it's classroom teacher and other instructional personnel salary increase, but I'd like to just say TSIA if I could. So all the dollars to make sure that we can maintain those raises that we gave over the years is now in the BAS. And then in the statute, you know, we can't go down. We don't want to go down, but we are required to provide 1.41% of the BAS to increase teacher salaries again this year. And but the statute did say that we are able to provide that in any way we feel is appropriate to the eligible teachers. So none of the 50, 50, 80, 20, all those different things every year, it kind of changed.
Real quick, I would say, I just want to verify that we allow our pre-K teachers that classroom supply assistance. And because sometimes they're not identified as classroom teachers based upon the state allocation. So sometimes when they're trying to put that together, it may not be there. I would check to make sure our pre-K and those teachers that, you know what I mean, miss out on a lot of our bonuses and stuff like that because they're classified not as teachers by the state. Also, I would ask if the media specialists also are included in that because they basically teach classrooms inside their libraries. So just as an idea, you just shoot me an email on it, that's all.
Okay, well, I'll
Thank you.
double check on that. And again, for the next one, for the teacher classroom supply assistance, we are required to set aside $300 per eligible classroom teacher. Right. One of the things that statute said is the FDOE is going to take over that process. They're in the process of going through an RFP and to get something similar to what we have with Class Wallet, but we were told to just go ahead this year because we're not ready. So we're still using are operating in the district, but next year I foresee that FDOE take over this allocation.
So would they then take that money out of our budget and take it back? Or are they going to leave it with us and they're going to come up with their own line item?
I think they're going to allocate it to us. They're going to ask us who are these teachers that we're paying, and we'll have to send that information.
And then we'll have to send the money to
Yeah,
them? Okay.
right. And then the reading instruction set aside $3.9 million. And again, it's now in the BAS. However, we still have to meet all the statutes. We have to provide the board reading instruction plan by August 1st. So everything that was required before is still required. It's just now a set aside within the BAS. And then instructional materials, that one is also one that we, no kidding, have to make sure we set aside. And, required, July 1st to the Commissioner of Education to make sure that we tell them how much money we're spending for textbooks and instructional materials every year. So textbooks are extremely expensive, and 4.5, we're on a gap year, so that's very low, but normally it's going to be much higher. So that's something that we really have to watch, is being able to cover the textbook requirements. And
Whoa,
some additional
whoa.
changes.
Is this a cameo by Dr. Rendell here?
I did not put the PowerPoint together.
He really likes Pete the cat.
Got me.
And so one of the new categoricals is the state-funded discretionary contribution. And these dollars are in our FEFP, but they are for the FES voucher students. We also have education enrichment allocation, which was originally supplemental academic instruction allocation. So kind of the same thing, except it allows us to now do some more activities during or beyond the regular school day, and tutors, parent counseling, extended days. So it allows us to do more than we had in the past with those dollars. And then they changed the DCD to the CWF, and you're either a 1 or above. So normally we were below 1, now we're a 1. And some of the things that aren't in the FEFP, the PICO, the school recognition, that's in the back of the bill. They allocated $200 million again. Last year we received $4.4 million. That includes the charters and the educational enrollments to stabilization program. That one is huge because right now, with the FEFP, if enrollment exceeds what was projected, in third calc normally, then there's a proration, and the state will prorate everybody. And so a lot of the thought was, and a lot of the worry of the district CFOs was, well, shoot, if the scholarship goes way over, now we're going to get prorated, and your number never changes. And so what they're doing this year is they're putting a $350 million reserve in case something like that would happen, to make sure that they protect the charters and the districts from any kind of proration. So now we're going to move to the budget development. I went over quite a bit of this. You can see the BSA increased $552 million, and that's if you include the mandated set-asides. So but if you don't, if you exclude the mandated set-asides, then we increased about 3.3%. So in reality, our actual increase was 3.3%. The FRS investment, in the previous slide, I said 6.5 million. This is all general fund, so our FRS increase for general fund is $6.4 million. 7.7 million is what our insurance health plan advisors are telling us that we will need for healthcare increase this year. What would be a 10% increase. And that is all funds. And then also, you know, we were able to increase the bus driver pay, so that's the 2 million. One of the things that I propose that we do is start moving some of the positions that we know are gonna come back to the base general fund now and kind of avoid some of the cliff issues that we may have, because there's a lot of great things going on that we might want to carry over. And we just want to make sure that we are in a good financial place, because again, we don't know what the out years will look like.
Hang on, Ms. Lisinski, before you go to that next slide. Are you saying that our consultants brought forward a 10% increase in health insurance?
Yes, that's.
Can you forward me those documents when you get a chance?
Sure.
You're awesome, thank you.
And then with the increase of revenue, we're going to need to increase our board contingency by 1.2 million. And again, the goal this year would be to increase our financial condition. Last year we were, and this was the strategy, was to be lean, to make sure that we were giving every dollar that we could to our employees. And we do need to make sure that we are, you know, maybe stocking up on some dollars now so we can make sure that we can meet any issues in the next couple of years. This, I'm not going to go through this whole slide with you, but what I wanted to show you here is when you compare. So when you read articles or anything about the increases from the legislator, and they did increase our funding, and they just want to make it clear that the fourth calc doesn't coincide with the conference report because they changed everything around. So in order to be able to compare things apples to apples, that gray column, you'll see that it's fourth calc, this is it right here, and then if you adjust it to meet how the conference report is laid out, then you have a better comparison of what the actual increases are. So if you look at BSA, you can see it's 12% increase if you just do the fourth calc to the conference report. But if you adjust it to what it really is now, it would be a 3.3% increase. You also can see that when you look at the base FEFP, it looks like the base FEFP went up 18%. In reality, it's 8.8%. So it just, I know, public has a lot of perceptions when they see these huge numbers, but they are not all our dollars. I just want to make that clear. And then you can go to the bottom right under the, and then you can also see, I'm sorry, wrong slide. But you can go to the bottom and you can see also the unweighted FTE. Sorry, wrong slide. I'm going to move on. This is where you can see it. So this one is broken out again, and this one is broken out by BPS, charter, and scholarship. Again, I think I'm probably a broken record, but want everyone to understand that total of 681, we don't see that number. Our number is 543. We manage the 80 million for charters, we're a pass-through, but the scholarship dollars, we never see. And then you can also, and this is the slide where you can see the bottom, right under the total funding, you can see the per unweighted FTE for our district students, for the charter students, and for the scholarship students. And so this is where we're forecasting right now. And as Dr. Rendell said, it's going to change. I promise you it's going to change. There's, the numbers are going to go up and down. Revenues may not meet what we expected, or they may exceed it. Expenditures could go up or down. But this is where we are today. The additional revenue altogether, 59.2, and that's with the FEFP. When you subtract out the increase in categoricals, family empowerment, charter growth, the funding compression hold harmless, that was deleted from the calculation, so we no longer get that money. And then the class size reduction went down, so available funding 23.3 million, not the 59. And then we have the FRS increase that we have to cover, and that's really a good thing for our employees. The health fund requirement, now this says 6.6, not 7.7, because this is general fund. So all the other funds pay into the insurance as well. So this would be the general fund portion. And then you have the teacher salary increase adjustment. That's the amount that we have to provide the teachers for raises this year. So a total of $18 million of must-pay things. Then we increased the bus driver pay, and the remaining dollars that we have right now that we see is 3.3 million. And again, that's assuming that we pay all of the health fund, those kind of things.
And Ms. Lisinski, is lapsed salary inside of there also? Were you able to get a number on what the lapsed salary might be?
This is revenue.
I know, but well, she put in there the cost of some of those other pieces. Was lapsed salary as part of the total additional revenue, or no? Because you put in the expenses.
No, we did not put the
Okay.
lapse salary
Okay.
in there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and then so these are I'm sorry?
That is a beautiful graph. Because it is the heart, it's the backbone of our community. That's Brevard. That's us growing. That's the Florida Chamber has said that we are the only county in the state of Florida that will not hit a recession. They said that 3 years ago, and that's why. And I'm really proud of that. Sorry, I had to wake up. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, good, I'm glad. And this is the same slide as that we showed during the April's Capital Workshop. However, the 23-24 number, it's actually a little bit lower than what we showed you because the conference report property values were higher than what they actually came in, but this is a certified number and it's still a pretty good jump.
Thank you.
This one may not wake you up.
That's okay, we get it.
The debt service schedule. And again, this slide was, oh, did you want to go back?
Let's get by it.
We're getting closer. We're getting, I know this is a hard one to swallow every year, but when I got on the board, we were $400 million in debt. Now we're only $300-something million in debt, so we're getting closer to getting it paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's determined. None of us will definitely be there unless one of us are dumb enough to rerun after we set out.
But I actually think this is a good slide to see that, we are not stretching out our debt any further. There's a place where we actually drop our debt service significantly. I mean, this is good.
fact that we're almost gonna, it's gonna be 20-something $million in 2033 that goes back to
Right.
this. It's gonna be incredible. Okay. Yeah, I mean, not in the other planet.
Okay, and again, here were the estimated dollars for the LCI projects. And this is the list of projects that we went over in April. The projects remain the same. If I'm going too fast, I'm not doing it on purpose.
Part of our reading.
I did have a question on this, and not without getting too specific, on the middle school tracks, line 61, that one was completely cut out. Do we have another source of funding on that, or are we looking at potentially waiting on that one because we just had to cut somewhere?
So it's a little bit of both. So yes, had to cut somewhere, but also we do have some minor funding in the sales tax plan for some middle school tracks. But back when that plan developed, it was resurfaced, 75,000. Figured it'd be a nice, easy repaving project. None of our tracks have been a nice, easy repaving project. And Hoover was the first of the group, and it's several $100,000 to fix it. So what we're thinking about is probably just doing kind of like we've done with the high school tracks, just start, you know, 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, trying to address our middle school tracks.
Okay, so that's something we can put back in, but we'll be using, but not into the capital, but using sales or tax.
It'll be a little bit of
excess.
both, and
Okay.
I would anticipate next year's capital plan, instead of having the high school track program, you'll start to see a middle school track
Yeah,
program.
because I know a lot of we've done such great work with the high school tracks, you guys have, but a lot of our middle school tracks are very,
They're a mess.
and there's no
Yep.
way they could host, and some of them
They-
are like practically concrete.
Yeah, and that's really the problem. You know, we thought initially 5-6 years ago this is going to be an easy little project, and none of them are. So we've got to get design. It's just
Right,
it's going
right.
to take a
Well,
while
I
and a lot
appreciate
more
it.
money.
I just wanted to
Yep.
check in case
There's-
people see that, and why did that go away? Thank you.
There's no regulation on middle school tracks being that they have to be rubberized, right?
Oh no, we're not planning to rubberize them.
I know.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. And then,
We just don't have potholes.
Yeah,
listen.
and
I've
trees growing
seen-
in them.
I've seen.
Yes.
It's what we grew up with. But the Titusville baseball field relocation, is there anywhere in there that's going to be the Viera baseball/softball possible relocation also?
Not on that list yet, sir.
Is there a way that we might be able to find something somewhere to maybe possibly look at that? Maybe?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Thank you. Just so everybody knows, the reason I say that is Viera doesn't have a softball, baseball field. They play in that darn big stadium, but then they get kicked out all the time, and they have to go over to the county, and they can't hang their own banners. They can't raise their own money. It's a bad situation. So although it's really cool to play on that turf,
Super nice,
Yeah.
super nice facilities
but the
that they have.
problem is
Yeah.
they can't host district and state championships. They can't do any of it, and it stinks. So
Our
we have to-
Titusville folks are
All the schools can't have all the things. That's what I
I
would
know
say.
they're
But-
it's challenging.
I agree. No, I agree that
Nice.
I've been to that field. I used to play. I know exactly the situation, and I promote it. I'm just saying there are some
Yeah.
other ones that I have to
Would
advocate.
love to have them all on site.
Yeah, as we're doing capital planning, like Ms. Campbell, you're correct too. Like there are a lot of schools that don't have a lot of things. So we're kind of getting our arms wrapped around what all those things are. And so you will start to see little bits and pieces of those things as we move forward. So yes.
Yeah, Titusville and Viera are the only ones without their baseball fields. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Miss.
All right, do you want to move on to the next slide?
Okay, okay. So challenges, we talked about most of these. Employee recurring compensation and correcting the compression issues that we have. That is something that we need to continue to chip away at. It's a challenge because there's a limited amount of money and there's a lot of competing requirements. The affordable self-insured health plan, investing in our Florida retirement plans, those are all dollars that we have to do. And then posturing for unknown unknowns. it's fluid out there right now to see where we're going to land. But I think we'll be okay. I really do. I think we are a great district, and people want to come to schools that are great. So I don't think we have, we just have to compete, and I think we'll be fine. We do have the inflation and the rise of costs, cost of doing business. Paper is so super expensive now. I mean, so textbook adoption is what I was trying to think of earlier. Previous years when they did the math and the ELA, it was a lot of money, and the only way we were able to do it was through ESSER. So, although this year is 4.5, we need to really be able to, I don't know, to bank some dollars somehow for when we do have these big adoptions, because historically we don't get the full amount to pay for that.
And we have social studies coming up this year, right, for this cycle, that we'll have to pay for
Right.
for next school year.
So that's something is on our radar. Soft landing for 24-25, ESSER is still there. It still can provide a safety net. It also gives us flexibility. And the other challenge is, as capital dollars become less than we were getting before, how do we manage that? We just, deferred maintenance was a huge problem. I wasn't here for it, but I hear the people that have been here for 20 years, I hear the same story about LCI used to be 2%, and then it moved down to 1.5, and how it was supposed to go back, and they still do the calculations of the lost opportunity. But, we're at 1.5 now, and it's going to, continue to go away or go down as we share with charters. So that's something that maybe we could, bring up next year to the legislature, because we do have maintenance. We deferred a lot of maintenance cost when that happened, and that's when we started saying, hey, we need a surtax in order to pay for these HVACs and these roofs and all those things. So we need to be aware. And then so we are required to provide the board our, where is it? Submit proposed budget to the board on the 21st. Our first public hearing will be the 27th of July. And then our final public hearing will be 7th September. So there will be changes as, and we're at the end of the year, but accounting is still processing a lot of payments, and so the numbers are going to shift a bit up and down, and so things are going to change, and they're going to change between the 27 July and 7 September, but I don't expect anything drastic. And I believe that is all I have. If you have any questions.
I'm good. Anybody else have any final questions? Thank you so much, Lisinski. Do you have anything? Ms. Jenkins, do you have any questions for Ms. Lisinski before we go?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Good. Everybody? Thank you, Ms. Lisinski. Appreciate
Mr.
the
Chair,
time.
if I could
Yes, sir. I'm so
suggest, so
sorry.
we have some people in the audience that I believe are here for one of the later topics, the media assistant
Yep.
discussion.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you wanted to maybe
Oh,
move
I'd
that
love
up
to.
so
Yeah.
that they don't have to sit here for much longer.
I know. They've been here since 9:30.
Yeah, so
I love that idea, Dr. Rendell. So if it's okay with the board, if we move that item up, okay? If you guys would like to come up to the table here so that we can get started. They're all coming. We want you all here. Don't try to hide. If you came, come on. And I like your shirt. School librarian. I like this. Thank you. Do we need an extra chair? Oh, no. Oh, no. Aha. I know somebody will try to get out. All right, thank you so much. Right now, the next topic is the Assistant Media Specialist discussion. And first off, I want to say the topic of discussion is wrapped around, is there a need for an Assistant Media Specialist? And I have a feeling that we had all indicated that there is. But I had asked the media specialist to come forward, talk to us about the why behind all of that so that we can give them the opportunity. I do want to say that Ms. Kublank reached out to me I coached against her husband, and in lacrosse, he was really good. We were really bad. And so it was not a very good battle that we had, but he was one of the greatest guys that I ever got to coach with, and you are an amazing individual. And what had happened is I was at Manatee Elementary, and she says, and it was it was literally chance. And I walked in there, I was in the office, I was just doing work, and she came out and she said, Mr. Susan, I really need to talk to you. And she started in with all of the issues that we have, and I said, okay. Went to a meeting where we all discussed it it was a good 2 or 3 hours, if not more, 4 hours. I talk a lot. And then you guys really took your time. And I wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. We understand what you guys are going through, but we would like to listen to more. I'm going to give you guys the basic framework that I had here was that we could talk about just basically some of the needs that you guys have. I identified all the notes from the meeting that we had, but I wanted to give you guys a talk and just kind of discuss. Board members, what I was looking at is to identify the reason behind the assistant media specialists. There's some admin procedures that I'd like to discuss. They are sometimes asked to sub, test, go to lunch duty, that kind of stuff. Recess to be listed as teachers for state bonuses because you guys don't get your state bonuses currently. We may be able to redo that, and just some of those things to discuss today. As you guys know, the budgetary process isn't, like you said, it's not for another month basically. But we'd like to hear from you. So I thank you for taking the time and staying here since 9:30. Board members, if you wish to say anything, but I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Kublank first.
Sure. I think, I got it. I think I have the privilege of being with kids for 7 years in a row and impact their reading. And I think our position and what we do, that part comes from our heart so naturally, but the job requires us, especially with the new laws, that we are doing the job of what we used to have as a media assistant. The weeding, the upkeeping of the books, the ordering the new books, the processing, the maintaining the classroom libraries, and then being pulled in different directions and then maintaining 7 classes a day. There are a lot of things that happen that over the past 3 years without a media assistant, that a lot of those things are going, it's taxing on all of us. We love our jobs. We don't want to do less. We want to do the job that we were asked to do. So having a media assistant has given us much more responsibility to maintain. I'm trying to think of other things that we've talked about. You guys can jump in at any time if you like.
Can I ask a question? Just 'cause I
Absolutely.
don't know. Are you all elementary?
Yes.
Okay, all of you are elementary. And can you talk a little bit about what it looked like prior to the media assistant? What was it like when they were there?
So kids had access to books 24 hours, 5 days a week. The doors were always open.
Yeah.
As a Florida Power Library school, our standards were very high for what we had provided in the library. Now I can't have that access because I'm teaching classes. Kids aren't getting books in their hands. In the classroom, they're told what to read. In the library, they can come and choose whatever they like to read to maintain and build that love of reading. That's my goal. When I see them as a kindergartner to 6th grade, I see them grow and become a love of reading, a learner, a lifelong learner. But I don't have that access. I'm checking out books now. I can't help the reluctant reader in the side of the room in the back who's quiet. And I want to make sure that they all get books in their hands.
It's very hard to make a connection with the students now because we don't have that time with them.
We want to make sure that it gets recorded because it's being live streamed, so we want to make sure everybody can hear you. If you wouldn't mind passing the mic down.
I was saying it's very hard to make those connections with the students, especially when they come into the school from another school or another county or another state. We don't have that extra person who's doing the checkout so we can help them find that just right book. We don't have that extra person who's managing the checkout so we can walk to the shelves and help find that book that makes that one little thing that child wants, or they're looking for a specific topic and we know that we have that book, we just have to find it, it's in the wrong spot. We don't have that time for the kids. And one of the things that Ms. Levinsky had said was the classroom, I forget what specifically it said on our first thing, we are a classroom and we want to put the students first, but we've got, the last 3 years, we've been pulled in so many directions that a lot has had to give. And knowing the 5 of us That's not who we are. We want to give 100%, and we can't. We just feasibly can't unless we do it before school, after school, and at home. And it's very hard to do two people's jobs with what we're being asked to do.
I had tasked you with giving me documentation to show school scores based upon having the availability of an assistant and some of the things that you're able to do. And I wanted to say thank you for getting those to me. If we can speak to some of the stresses that you deal with on a regular basis that having a media specialist would be able to help. So, media assistant, I'm sorry. I'm gonna dance around that. It's been a long day. But there's some of the things that you guys are having to do that, you know, now with the new laws and stuff like that are making it a little bit more difficult, that the need for a media assistant would help alleviate that. Could we speak to that?
A huge thing for me right now, not pertaining to the new laws, but is student safety. I'm stuck behind a computer checking out books to kids, and I can't see what's going on in that far corner of my huge classroom where kids are taking advantage of me being stuck behind that desk. So I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Can you speak to we had a series of items that I had here. One of them was, since the last time we decided to not allow or not have media assistants, we have now seen that you guys are responsible for the classroom libraries, which is inhibiting you from doing that beginning of the year. Can you speak to how much work that is and the dynamic component to that? And we had spoken about an app that may be able to help across the board with help. If you could speak to those items.
You wanna talk about it? So maintaining the law in the classroom libraries, and I have 889 students, and that's over 70 classroom teachers. That means those libraries have to go through us. And we have an app called Beanstack that's going to help assist with that process, but the time to do that takes me away from my classroom. And so there's a huge process that goes to validating and verifying that those books that the teachers want to use in the classroom, we have to vet those books. And that it's such a time-consuming aspect. But
Can I ask, the teachers come back early August, right? And then they unpack everything, and then they ask you about the process to then come by and verify their classroom, you know what I mean, libraries. At what point how many classes, 70 something? How long would it take you without a media assistant to start at the beginning of the year and go until you could verify all the duties, all of this?
that's a great question.
Ask her in December.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a new app to assist with this daunting task, because it's going to be more transparent to all the teachers to see where they're in line to be vetted for their classroom collection. It's going to take a long time. But
Depends
on the size
of
the yeah.
Can I jump in there? And that started last year, so were you able, how far did you get in the process? And I know you have new teachers on board, you'll have to do that, but, you know, assuming last year you guys started, how far did you get into the school year? Or did you get everybody done? So did we have classrooms with zero?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd
Classroom
like
libraries.
to make a comment. I'm in Titusville, and I would say that a good portion of the teachers chose to box their books and put them away and turn their shelves around. And partly it was because of the time that they needed to get with me. Time is something we can't get back, and we only have so much time in a day. And my priority is the 5-year-old or the 20 first graders. And so teaching 7 classes a day, and the teacher saw that. I have to be very present for safety, to find that right book, to ensure a love of learning in a place that's safe, that kids want to be. And so I have to focus on that. I can't think about the vetting of the books in that moment. And then I have lunch that I try to eat, and I'm trying to catch up on those books that those teachers want. And so I think there were classrooms that maybe they only put 7 books out because those were the only ones that got checked. There's just not enough time. And so I have a little bit different perspective. I've only been in this job 4 years. I was a classroom teacher for 20. I can tell you that I feel like I have two different jobs. I have the kids and the teaching, 7 a day, plus news crew and everything I do with kids. And then there's the book side, which is what you mentioned. It's the buying, it's the fixing, it's the shelving, it's the weeding, it's the vetting, it's a lot. And then I get pulled to sub frequently, or I'm doubling up because we don't have subs. So now I have 2 6th grade classes that I'm trying to maintain safety, which means then my lesson doesn't get taught and I don't get any books in hands. So I think it came down for me personally, I'm just not physically able to do it. It's just me. And so I feel like my heart is for the kids. So all of that had to just wait till my lunch break or, my planning or something like that.
Another question on the process, because I want to know moving forward where we are. I mean, last year, obviously, the first time, and that was the biggest chunk, that we have to go through, and it sounds like we have an app. Do our teachers now, did they last year, or will they with the new app have the option to? Because the law says that every book has to be vetted by a licensed media specialist, which is you guys. If a teacher has a book on their shelf that they know is in your library, we're done with that book, right? They don't have to bring it back to you. They're bringing things, they have to go through their own, right? But if there's something that they have on their shelf that's not on your shelves, that's when they're having to come to you, correct?
Yes, because the law specifically states age appropriate and content appropriate.
Right.
So you can't have a book that's for 5th grade per se in a 2nd grade classroom.
Okay.
The teacher may have it there because they're like, well, my 2nd graders read at a 5th grade level. But if the content is not appropriate, then that teacher needs to understand as a 2nd grade teacher
Right.
that even though that book has already been vetted for the 5th grade or the 4th grade, that it's still not okay
Right.
in their classroom. So with this new app, we can put in the lowest grade level that it's appropriate for.
So it can be more of a self-service evaluation, because you guys have already put that, a certified media specialist has already said this grade level, this book.
But they still have to upload it. And
Right.
that's the biggest thing, is getting the
Okay.
teachers to buy into this new app and having them actually
Right.
upload their information.
Is it? And I'm asking this. I'm sorry, we're getting a little in the weeds, but one of the things that I was talking to my school board members, friends from across the state. Some districts had I don't know if it was the same app, but they had like a barcode, so the teachers literally could just beep, 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 and it would. But they had to, somebody has to produce the barcode, or no, it was they could actually scan the ISBN barcode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that where we are? Where they're so then what we need is volunteers to help the teachers come in and do the beep, boop, boop, and so moving forward, that will be helpful in the coming years. That's not detracting from our conversation we're having right now about your need for assistance. I'm there with you. I just want to see moving forward for teachers who may be watching, are we going to make their life easier as well as yours with what we have coming forward? So what we are doing is the one where you're actually scanning the barcode from like where you buy the book. Okay.
Okay, one of the reasons Beanstack was purchased by the district was to supply the part of the law where it has to be community front. So this will also take care of that part of the law where the community has access and can search and see what's in the classroom libraries. So
Okay.
that was the number one reason for purchasing this Beanstack app, is so that we have that community front, as
Right.
well as hopefully opening up the classroom libraries. Nothing we do is hard. It's all time consuming, so it's back to that. But yes, we do not want the message going out to teachers that they are expected to walk into the building and do their scanning. We do want to find other ways of volunteers or students or whomever. And if some schools went through a spreadsheet format, there is a way to go ahead and take that format, that spreadsheet, and upload it. But then it takes time for the librarians to go through
Right.
and do that age and grade level appropriateness. So again, that's going to take some time.
I'm going to throw down a challenge to the board in the middle of our conversation. I mean, we're going to talk about some other ways we can help, but one of the things that we had that conversation when we were at FSBA was there were school board members who volunteered to come in and help teachers scan their books. So I'm going to say,
All right.
throw down the challenge. Going to throw down the challenge, board members. Especially if we get a scanner, it'll make it fun. You'll love it, Mr. Seuss. You could just go down and boop.
I'm
boop,
like,
boop.
I'm thinking kids would love this. They love that self-checkout thing where they're scanning stuff.
I
So I'm like,
know.
I feel like
I'll put this out there. If once we get in place, I volunteer myself for media specialist.
Yes.
And I'm going to say in District 5. Call me and I'll come in July and August and help you boop, boop, boop your books.
Yep.
All right.
Dr. Rendell, I think, I'm so sorry.
Your mic's on.
Oh, okay. I thought Paul was going to tell you you couldn't do it. I was about to. Anyways, I did want to say, Dr. Rendell, it may be a good thing to do with communications to get it out. Maybe grab some. We were talking before about getting people to get into from the ESF and other areas to support. Maybe that's something they can do at the beginning of the year, just as an idea.
Yeah, typically at the beginning of the year, we make sure we go out and support the schools as they open. Something we could do during pre-plan for sure.
We could have a scan challenge.
I think what?
I love that.
We could have a
And then
scan challenge.
we may be able to invite some of our other local officials to come out and help us out too.
Yeah.
We can make it a big event.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ms. Campbell, for bringing
I
that up.
honestly, when I hear you guys talk, it breaks my heart because I think about a kindergartner that the first time in school and the first time even being exposed to a library. A lot of our kindergartners haven't seen a library before. And then to think, oh, now there's all these books and there's so much magic around that and they can't touch any of them because you're busy with all the other kids and the things that are calling your attention right at that moment. So I 100%, I've said this before, am advocating for you guys to get back the assistance that you need so that you're not so bogged down with all the things. And then hopefully we can refine these systems and keep on improving and this will get better. I know right now it's new and it's very, it's an cumbersome job to go through every book in every classroom. So thank you guys for all that you do. Do you have anything?
No, I was going to ask about the beanstalk, but I always give Gene an opportunity, Mr. Trent, an opportunity to speak down there.
Would be to repeat it. Absolutely. I'd be up for going in and scanning as many books as possible, but being a testing coordinator, we had to scan every document that was coming through there, so pretty good with the scanner myself. And I look forward to the day that you get those helpers back. I was able to work side by side with two of them at Cocoa Beach, and it's a lot. I mean, when people say they have gone out of the classroom and into the library to be a library or a media specialist, it isn't so there's less work. You know, I welcomed the day I had my 4 little walls and a door that I could shut and teach my classes. But you guys are really under the microscope and have so much to look after in those rooms. So thank you for what you're doing. And I mean, I don't wish you didn't have this to do. I think it's a necessary process, and you know, soon that apps are being created, things will be easier in the future. But I mean, we're here to help. Thank you.
One of the things that we had mentioned about was the app. I'm sorry, Ms. Kublink, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to remind you that the media specialists, we're a unique group. We're the heart of the school, and we support the teachers, our administration, our students, and most importantly, our parents who don't know how to get their kids excited about reading. We're not the ones administering the tests, we're administering the confidence in our kids. And I feel like our position 3 years ago, we thought that we could do more than what we were doing. And we've proven over the 3 years that it takes a little bit more than one person in the media centers because it impacts everybody. And in elementary schools, we do have 7 years with those kids. Nobody else has that privilege. I see a little one grow into ready for what life is coming next. And then graduation, when the kids came back in their cap and gowns after graduating and sharing that with our 6th graders on the last day of school, I could not stop hugging when they come back as 12th graders, there's a connection. And I think we need to invest in that. And I hope that's what you guys consider.
Yeah, I think as a
May I
secondary.
jump in?
Oh, yeah, there she is.
Ms. Jenkins, did you say something?
She wants to jump in.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to jump in real quick and thank you for being here today. I mean, I've advocated from the day since I've been here for you guys to get your assistance back, at least at a minimum at the elementary level. I know I loved, I believe it was, I'm not watching the video, so I apologize. I don't know who's speaking when they're speaking, but who said that, you know, we're not here advocating for us to do less work. We're here advocating so we can actually do the job we were hired to do. And, you know, unfortunately, as an employee of Brevard Public Schools myself, I'm aware that you're not the only position in which we task so many demands on top of the one that you were hired to do. And I understand how frustrating that is and how difficult that is. And you have my full support to get whatever we can possibly get to make this job the job that you want to do and to benefit our students in the best way possible.
So one of the things I was going to, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. One of the things I was going to ask is that there was an app that you were saying, do we have, and please don't say like names if they're not, but do we have all schools utilizing this app in the primary and secondary opportunities to support media specialists, or is there some opportunity for growth there?
We received final purchase for elementary only in June. We went live in June.
Okay.
So we really haven't immersed even the elementary level at this point. There is one middle school, high school that has purchased the app through their own funding. So the district purchased for elementary only.
Would you say that there are media specialists in the secondary that would like to have that, or is that just not something that's come forward yet?
Yes, I do. I think the concern was putting more work possibly on the classroom teachers, maybe was
Okay.
some of the thinking. And their laws and the policies are different in the middle school and high school,
Okay.
but we've seen those change, right? It's creeping up as we go. I know that the one school who did purchase it, she definitely saw the need, and another one, middle school media specialist, went back to her principal, and they talked about it in great length, and they've opted just to wait a year before they purchase it. So the two that I shared it with fully, they definitely see the need, and like I said, one did purchase it through their own funding.
I would hate to have our middle school and secondary schools have to utilize school funds to purchase something that we're allocating for all of our primary schools. So there might be an opportunity, Dr. Rendell, since there's not many of them that are jumping on this, to maybe be a part of the purchase for all of it with district funds. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll check it out. I mean,
Sure.
we'll talk to the secondary
Yep.
media specialist to see if it's something they're interested in.
It's a little different for our secondary schools because in elementary school, pretty much every single classroom has a classroom library, whereas in the
Correct.
secondary schools, it's your ELA classes and your
Correct.
reading classes, but your other ones aren't necessarily going to have a classroom library.
History. I had a
Well,
whole
yeah,
classroom
history
set,
does some, yeah.
stuff that.
So I
Pretty
want to refer the board back to an email that Jane Klein sent us on the 7th, which was last Friday. It included in that her rationale for bringing back media assistance, and as well as a spreadsheet of, I'm going to assume it's basically what it was before, because it was based on size of school. So the larger schools got up to 6 or 7 hours of an assistant. Some of them had 5.5 hours, some have had 4 for the smaller. Because the smaller schools, it's fewer classrooms they have to vet, but they're all teaching all through the day. So, I think the options, there was like an option 1, option 2, based on, for the largest schools, do we give them a 7-hour day, 6-hour day? The students are there for like 6.5 hours. So it's a matter of how much time we're going to give them before and after school. So that's pretty much what I remember, because I remember some of my schools having a 5.5-hour assistant. That's pretty much what we did before. Only the very smallest schools didn't have an assistant. So looking at that, I think that's kind of our baseline start. This is for elementaries. I know, because we've already heard from some, and so I'm going to go ahead and address it. I've heard from some in email of our secondary media specialists who would really also like to have assistants back too. But I just have to state for the record, the elementary world is so different, because our elementary schools media specialists are on the activity wheel. They are teaching kindergarten through 6th grade in whatever. Every school is a little different in how they do their activity wheel, but they're on that in addition to the other responsibilities. And because of the classroom library book vetting. So I was on the board when we cut it, and so you can shoot arrows at me, but we had good reasons in that budget year to do it. We were trying to grab every dollar we could for employee compensation, and some of the raises that we got in the following school year were because of the cuts that we made to those assistants. Now, what happened from the time we were making that decision until now was a global pandemic. and then all the new legislation. So it probably would have been bad. And we also looked at every school district across the state of Florida and said other school districts don't have media specialists and media assistants. They either have one or they have the other. Some school districts wouldn't put a certified media specialist in their libraries in elementary. They would just put an assistant who really pretty much could just check out books and couldn't do the teaching side of it. And so, you know, we were looking at that. Well, all these extra, it was just a perfect storm of making your lives terrible. And that's not what we wanted. And we knew it was going to be hard. And my goal all along was, let's get these parents volunteers to come in and help. But the parent volunteers can't vet the books. They can't do so much of what you guys do. And so I would be in support of, you know, asking Dr. Rendell, let's look at this in our elementaries and see if we could bring back something like what has been presented by Ms. Klein, a plan similar to what we had before for our elementary schools to, you know, that comes out of our $3.3 million that we have. But, you know, if we can find a way to make that happen, I would be in support of that, especially considering the additional pressures that are put on our media specialist with the recent legislation.
Okay. That was just kind of an off. I have a couple other items that I'd like to get through, but do you guys have anything else as of right now? Okay. And I would also say that, just like Ms. Lisinski said, those budgetary items are not locked in stone. There's no lapse in there. We've seen them come forward with percentage increases in healthcare that then, you know what I mean, don't transpire. So there's a lot of moving parts in that. So I wouldn't say that $3.3 million is all we have. The other thing I was going to say is we had some other items that I wanted to talk about. You'd spoken before about sometimes you guys are pulled to cover for subs, sometimes you're pulled to cover for testing, cover for lunch duty, those kind of things. It extremely inhibits the overall component of that. Can you speak to that and how that hurts you guys when you're doing that? Is there a way to do that?
Address that?
Oh, I can address being a sub if you'd like me to.
What happens in your library when you go to substitute for your 7 classes that you engage with?
So the library's closed.
So what do they do? So like I'm a kid, next day I'm going to a library and now.
So the other activity teachers would double up. So maybe art had 2 classes or music had 2 classes. So I would go in the morning and shoot my live news show, and then I had about 10 minutes to grab my bag and go and sub. So it was usually last minute, and at my school, we were understaffed and also had a sub issue. So then I would spend the day and the library would just be closed. And then the next days I would be trying to catch up at lunch to bring classes in to do checkout, swap out books, or my planning whenever I could get those students back in. And the lesson, anything that was planned that day just stopped. It, you know, just didn't happen because I was in 3rd grade or 4th grade or 6th grade or wherever I got sent.
Anybody else want to speak
Well, there
about
were
that?
some schools that when the library media specialist was pulled, they lost their library for the week. So there was, she went above and beyond even the expectation probably of her principal trying to squeeze in the kids who missed their library for the day or for the week technically. So some just missed library altogether. So they would have to wait until the 2nd week to have their time. And also the libraries aren't open because no assistant to just come in as they finish a book to make those exchanges naturally. So a lot of them just missed their library for the whole week.
But what didn't stop happening was the books that the students were finished reading, they kept coming back. So we had 4 carts full of books that needed to be checked in. Then they need to be put back on the shelf in their right home. So you have all these books coming in, but you don't have anybody helping you. You aren't in your space to do that part of your job. And then, of course, the kids are excited and they want a new book. They want the next book in the series. Well, we can't get you that now because we're doing lunch duty or we're subbing. So everything paused except for the books coming back. Right. So.
And I wanted to try to express to those that may be watching that our principals were faced with making decisions that this is not a negative towards them. This is a, hey, these are some issues that we need to address. Let's work together and collaborate on it. I was speaking, and I remember being a teacher, and when I had my plannings taken away, so what I did was I just signed up to teach all the way through the whole day because I figured if I had it taken away, I might as well get paid for it anyway. So at the time, the subs didn't get paid, so I went 7 of 7 as a teacher. But what I would say is that me as a teacher, I knew how to throw in and be a part of the collective good and to do all those things. But you're in a unique position other than an average teacher in that you have them coming no matter what. We would do it on plannings. So when you don't get that, now you're behind and there's no way for you to catch it, because if it happens one day a week, now you have to catch up those hours ahead of time, the books that are stacked and all those components. I would venture to give Dr. Rendell a look back at it, but to come back with a recommendation that subbing and testing and lunch and all that other stuff is off limits for our media specialists in the event that they can turn around and effectively work the center part of it. And I'll be honest with you, Ms. Wright has a huge initiative that she wants to bring, which is early childhood literacy and everything else. This is a huge component of that. And if we're going to make a commitment to that, then I have to support those things that way. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm okay with that if you guys wanted him to look at it.
Is there anything that would stop us from looking at for this coming school year? Because as we're working through this, I don't know how fast this will happen to get a media assistant in there. To be able to say, hey, you guys aren't subbing, you're not pulling lunch duty, you're staying where you're supposed to be. Is there anything that we could do now to help alleviate that?
I mean, we could obviously make a directive out to the principals not to do that. I think, to be honest, I don't know if I'd be comfortable doing that because it still might be the best situation.
Yeah.
The least of the evils, to have a licensed, educator in the room subbing versus no
Who's a reading
adult,
specialist.
right. So I don't know if I'd want to tie the hands that way. I think
Okay.
the idea would be to provide them more resources.
Okay.
That would be the solution.
Before next school year.
That's it.
Are we at the point, and to go where you were going, are we at the point in the budget cycle where if we said, Mr. Superintendent, we want to do what we can to try to bring the media assistants back this year for elementary, we'd have to advertise and obviously
Right.
hire, and the principals would have to, but these are part-time jobs, something that some of our parents in the past have filled, and we might. I don't know if we're in the place where how fast we could get them. I imagine they'd take them even if it was December, but we'd have to. I don't.
We can get them. We can get them at the beginning. If we were able to say, yes, let's move forward, and you were able to go out, I don't think you would have a problem finding a media assistant, right? That was one of the things
You
I
already
said.
have identified people.
They're
that-
like tomorrow they would have it.
Oh,
filled.
okay.
Like that's what's happening. So I think, again, this is part of a conversation that we have to bring up during the budget. I think that we're, you know what I mean? Because we don't even know what the cost is yet. We don't know,
Right.
according to everything else. We have an executive session after this that we're talking about. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, even though, Ms. Campbell, I love the energy. But I did want to say that the reason I was getting there with the conversation around the subbing and stuff like that is that if you have a media assistant, it becomes very much easier to cover a class every once in a while, even though, and I would say it should be like last resort, like not utilized over and over again, that there's some sort of a limit, and then we create a crisis here to have sub coverage and stuff like that. Because we have some schools that had a lot of need for subs, and I understand that 100%. Okay, so then the other thing that I wanted to speak to is there was in other school districts, and this is something that you guys said that we might be able to help us find. They have relisted the media assistant as a different type of individual so they can get covered for the bonuses and stuff like that from the state.
Right.
Where are we at with that? Have you proposed that to our school district to try to do that?
I have not, no, sir.
Okay, but you have examples in other counties where our media specialists, if they were reclassified, because this always comes up every time we get a bonus, just so you know, the media specialists come up and say, we teach 7 classes a day, and they do. They are a classroom teacher. Pre-K comes in and says, we are a classroom teacher, and every single time we have to then allocate resources from our own budget to then pay for them. The key is that if we had you guys inside of it, we would not have to have that conversation, that debate, that battle, and all that. It would be part of the overall pie that we get. They would be included. So is there a way that you can work with staff and just get that to Dr. Rendell and staff and say, hey,
Absolutely.
and then that way we could look at that as a possibility?
I have the information not currently in front of me,
Yeah.
but we do have, it's been collected, and I can get that to Dr. Rendell, no problem. And I also want to piggyback on, a lot of our librarians do see the pre-K classes. If they have them in their schools, they do go for media time, which is very important. We know they need to sing and dance and do the nursery rhymes and those types of things. So some of our elementary librarians see 8 classes, not just the 7.
So I have here discussion wrapped around the media assistant for next year for identified schools and everything else. I have here that we're going to look at reevaluating the job title to be included in the state bonuses. Also look into possibly secondary utilizing the app. And I think that as far as sub-testing and all that stuff, that's part of what we'll look at. But is there anything else that you guys would like to bring forward that I may have missed? Because I have a lot of notes here, but I'm running around.
You
go
were a
ahead.
very good listener that day. I just wanted to, I don't know that I need to say this, but I want to say this. Putting an assistant in the library, I don't want that to become, if the media specialist needs to be pulled for subbing, that is what it is. But I don't want we have an assistant in the library now, so it's easier to pull the media specialist.
Right, that's what my fear was.
So I just want to make sure that's kind of, on my heart, that we protect that, because that's the whole point, is to have them in tandem working together to take care of the needs that are in the library. But I understand, and we all do, and even Carla will tell you that if this is what the school needs me to do, I'm going to do it. So we're not, we understand those needs are there, but I don't want it to feel like, to some schools, that there's an assistant, so therefore the media specialist can do this or that, and they need to be in their space, they need to be in their classes, their classroom in the library. So I just want to protect that.
They can shoot us an email and we'll look into it.
Absolutely,
If there's an issue, so.
absolutely.
All right, I will vet to each one of you for final comments. I think we've moved through some pretty good topics. I think you guys are there. You guys have anything
No,
to say?
thank you guys so much for all that you do. And I like the scan challenge, so I will come and scan some books.
Forgot
We're real
Scan
competitive
challenge.
around here. We're
Yeah.
trying to find something where one of us can win.
Yeah,
Amy's got it. Amy dubbed it. Amy?
It's a scanathon.
a scanathon, all right.
So the scan, we'll come up with it and we'll share it
I have
out with
some
you guys.
really big schools in District 5, so I'm telling you what, you give me a scan gun and I'm like,
Yeah.
power through,
Knock
get
it out.
5,000 done in a
It's
day.
even better than, you don't even get to use a scanner, though. You use your computer or your phone.
Oh, your phone, perfect.
Yeah.
Snap.
So,
I
yeah.
Can we get a scanner? Can I have a
I'm gonna bring my
scanner?
teenager.
You go to
and
your
make sure
schools
she
and-
can snap.
We
I also have
appreciate
3
y'all.
teenagers who need something to do.
There we go. Get their hours in, absolutely. We appreciate y'all so much. Go ahead. Yes.
It may have been said, I had to leave for a second, but hopefully if we're able to bring back these media assistants because they are needed, that they would not be a floating sub or helper in the school, that they would have an assigned duty in our library. They're there because we need them.
Yeah.
Because too often, they're like, oh, well, they weren't there before, so we can pull them to help in the ex-ed classroom. Oh, we have 5 lunch duties that need to be covered today, so you don't really need them. Because when they're not in our library, that prevents us from doing the duties we need to accomplish.
I think Dr. Rendell's got a pretty good handle on where we're going.
Yeah, message was received pretty clear.
Do you guys have any other comments before I kind of close it out?
We just appreciate y'all giving us the time.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Rendell, you got anything there?
No, I'm good. I didn't know if you want to take a break.
Yeah, we do, but I wanted to say thank you, and I think that our challenge should be that we get as many of our school classrooms done before the school year starts. And it's great that we have challenges between each other and everything, but I'm going to try to mobilize a lot of people to come.
That'd be
And the
great.
reason is that we need to do that. We need to be committed to our teachers and our staff as far as these libraries, and so that our kids can read. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for the hard work that you guys have had, but I hope this helps. And I think that we'll be happy in about a month when we come back with some sort of a plan.
Yes.
And then we'll try to get them moving ahead of the schedule before school starts. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Um,
Email me about. I'm serious about. I will come and help.
Okay,
scan. So,
we'll
yeah,
email you.
Email me.
You know what?
Good day.
I'll come, Kubla. Yeah, I got you. All right. Thank you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back in 10 minutes.
trash in my water because I don't think there's any more water.
Mike, when you get a chance, apparently we're not online. All right, welcome back. We have Ms. Francis, Director of Assessment and Accountability. It's going to give us a fast data report. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Ms. Francis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Randell. This afternoon, what I'm going to do with the fast data is we're going to do a comparison of district to the state. We're also going to look at BPS 22 to 23 data. We're going to look at the school, focusing on the highest performing schools. So what I looked at was who are the schools that had double-digit gains, so we can focus on that. And then, of course, the rank-in state. There's a little bit of the rank-in state that I want to talk about first. The rank-in state, when you look at the districts, there's always 67 districts. However, you'll notice that when we start looking at the rank-in state by school, for third grade, there could be 2,200 schools. For sixth grade, there could be 1,200 schools. There's a lot of things that need to be taken into account. If you don't have 10 students in a cell, the state doesn't report it. So it reports it as a star, and that means that we pull those out of the calculation because you can't rank if you don't have a number. And we normally rank by the percent at level 3 and above. So this first slide is the comparison of the state to the district. And when you look at this, you'll see that all grade levels are up, the Brevard is outperforming the state. Looking at sixth grade, we're 14 percentage points above the state. This is the historical data for your rank-in state, and it is 21, 22, and 23, 23 being green. And we'll see the BPS improve their rank-in state in all grade levels except for 3 and 10. Fifth grade remained the same, and sixth grade is ranked second in the state of Florida. This is a little bit of a cumbersome chart to look at, but I thought it was worthwhile for us to be able to see the progression between 21 and 23. So what I did for the change, the percent change, was actually compare 22 to 23. And when you look at this, you'll notice that there are increases. When compared to 22, Brevard demonstrated increases in grades 4 and 9. And what you have to remember when we talk about level 1 is that we're looking for decreases in level 1. So we always want to see a positive in level 3 and above. So we want to see gains, and we want to see decreases in level 1. And the last column also shows the ranking state for the last 3 years. When comparing your level 1 students, Brevard decreased in all grade levels except for grade 10 and 3rd. And 5th grade remained the same.
So before we leave that slide, if you could back up real quick.
Yes.
So when she says we decreased in that last set of data on the right, that's what we want.
Okay.
We want a decrease in the number of students in level 1.
Yes.
Okay.
So we
back-
want increases in some columns
Yeah.
and decreases in others. So we just want to make sure we know what we're looking for.
Because that's good.
And of course, this depicts the school information for 3rd grade. 22 schools improved, 9 improved in double digits. So those are the ones that I really focused on.
Wow.
And that's what you have, the names of the schools. Freedom 7 increased by 16 percentage points. And then when we look at level 1, we notice that Tropical, Sherwood, and Riviera decreased their level 1 students' performance by 8 percentage points.
Wow.
This is what I was talking about, the rank-in states. Although we have 6 schools that ranked at the top 100, it is out of 2,251 schools. Stevenson ranking at number 5,
Wow.
and Gemini number 17. Keep in mind that we want to rank at the very top. So people always say, well, we increased the rank. We don't ever want to increase the rank. We want to decrease the rank. So we want to go from 5th to 1st is what we always want to look for. So this is the same thing for 4th grade. 31 schools improved. 12 schools improved by double digits, with Sea Park, Saturn, and Riviera all increasing by 21 percentage points,
Wow.
which is huge. Okay.
I have to stop for a second because that first line makes me want to cry.
Yep.
Saturn
Mm-hmm.
spent so much of this year short of teachers and everybody scrambling and classes big, and that was the school where we brought in the international teacher contract and brought them in mid-year, and they look at that. I just want to take all of them and squeeze them in a good way and tell them thank you, because look at those huge gains and the huge losses to their level ones with all the challenges that they face this year. So bravo to Saturn and the other schools too, but I just know that we were hyper focused on Saturn this year because of all the struggles that they had, and that is amazing.
So that's why it's so important to look at the data not only globally but also granularly at the school level, so we can actually see what's going on at the school level.
And we that was one of the schools board that we pulled some of our people who were supposed to be doing other things up here, and they had to go off task to go into that school, and some of them taught there for 4, 5, 6 months, you know, and weren't able to do their other jobs, unfortunately, but it was good for the kids at the time.
When we look at the percent at level 1, 25 schools decreased their percentage of level 1. Sea Park having 21 percentage points decrease, Columbia and Creole 17 percentage points decrease. But to your point, for 4th grade, Saturn also had a 14 percentage point decrease. So kudos to 4th grade at Saturn. And 7 schools were ranked in the top 100. Stevenson was number 3, Freedom 7 was 8th, and Indian Atlantic was 23rd for 4th grade. 5th grade ELA, 21 schools improved, 8 decreased the percentage by double digits. Palm Bay, Brevard Virtual, I saw this morning the Brevard Virtual earned an award, and I will tell you, you'll see their name coming up for several of the grade levels in elementary. And MIMS increased over 20 percentage points. When you look at the 15 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring at level 1, with Harbor City and MIMS at 13 percentage points. Again, 6 schools ranked at the top 100 out of 2,239. Freedom 7 and Holland were 25th. 6th grade, 17 schools improved the percentage of level 3. 3 schools increased by double digits, Oak Park, Pinewood at University Park. 19 schools decreased the percentage at level 1, with Oak Park decreasing by 15 percentage points. 16 schools ranked at the top 100. Vieira Elementary was 10th, Freedom 7 was 12th, and Stevenson was 12th. Grade 7, we have 6 schools improving, 2 increasing the percentage by double digits, with Jackson increasing by 13 percentage points. 8 schools decreased the percent of students scoring at level 1, with Space Coast Junior Senior High School by 10 percentage points. West Shore scored was 8th, and Edgewood was 13th. When we look at 8th grade data, the 8 schools improved.
There are.
Brevard Virtual increased the percentage of students by 19 percentage points for 8th grade. 6 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring at level 1. 3 schools ranked in the top 10. I'm sorry, that should say 100, so that's a typo, my apologies. And West Shore was 8th. For grade 9, 8 schools improved their percentage of students scoring at level 3+. Heritage Merritt Island increased the percentage of students by 9 percentage points. 6 decreased it, with Palm Bay having the largest decrease, 7 percentage points. 6 schools ranked in the top, Edgewood and West Shore. For 10th grade, we had 8 schools ranking in the top. We had 1 school that had double digits, which was Astronaut. 3 schools decreased the percent of students going at level 1. Space Coast, Astronaut, Space Coast, and Mel High. 2 schools ranked in the top, Edgewood and West Shore. Edgewood was number 1 in the state of Florida.
Can I ask real quick?
Sure.
Does that 764 only include public schools, or does it also include charters, privates?
It includes any school that has students that tested. So that would, not the private, but it certainly does include the charters.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. And I actually went back and recalculated that number because I thought it was really low, and I looked at it, so I looked at it again, and it is 764, but they have a lot of charters that didn't have the magic 10. So if you don't have that, you'll see that there's a large number of schools that have that asterisk, and they don't calculate it. The reason they don't calculate it is for the privacy of the students, because that could either indicate, if you know that there are 10 students in this grade level in your school, and you know that 50% of them did well, that tells you that who were the, then, so for the protection of the students, if they don't have more than 10 students, they don't report it out. Questions when it comes to ELA? So I did the same thing when it comes to the math results.
So I'm going to make a comment before we,
Sure.
so if you want to back up. Just, I didn't hear the introduction, but just when we say comparison, improved or decreased and everything, keep in mind these are 2 different assessments. So FAST data versus FSA. So, it's percent of students proficient, 3 and above, percent of students in level 1, and that kind of thing. But keep in mind it was 2 different assessments. So in some ways we found a lot of data that we could celebrate. In some ways we found a lot of data that was alarming. So keep in mind, let's not forget two different types of assessments.
Okay.
So the comparison of, FAST data and FSA data is not perfect. So just want to make sure we remember that. Some of the other numbers we're going to look at in a few minutes are tests that haven't changed. Like the EOCs haven't changed over the years. Science hasn't changed, like 5th and 8th grade science hasn't changed. So, but reading and math, 3 through 8 for math and 3 through 10 for ELA have, that's new. So.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rendell, because I failed to mention at the beginning that this is a standard setting year, and therefore the State Board of Education is going to look at all of the data that has been received so far and then set the standards. This data that you're looking at is actually linked back to FSA. We won't actually know what is going to occur when we have the new cut scores, and what they'll do is probably sometime in October, they're going to provide us with a retrofitted file. And that retrofitted file will then give us a better idea. So I'll do the analysis again and do a comparison so we can look to see what were the true ramifications. If the scale scores change, what are the new scale scores and how would we have scored then?
Does that go down to the student level? So is there a possibility the student who was like right on the cusp of getting a 2 instead of a 1 or getting a 3 instead of a 2, that when they redo it, could they potentially be a 3 instead of a 2? Or, how far down is that going to go?
So it does go down to the granular level, to the student level. However, the state of Florida will never change. So if a 343 is a level 3 for when they took the assessment, that will forever be the 343. That will be the cut score that meant on grade level performance. And then what they've also said that for PM1, when we take PM1 in the fall, they will also be using the linked scores because it would have not had enough time to go to the State Board of Education and have those cut scores approved. So when we compare PM3 for, let's say, a 3rd grader to PM1 for the same 4th grader, we'll be able to do apples to apples, which is not going to be as consistent as if we were going to use it from next year unless we use the current data.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. So in other words, even if it changes, they're not going to reissue those scores. So if they got a 1,
they
and
got
even
a
if
1.
they were like, even if once they norm it,
Right.
it would have been a 2, it's still going to be a 1.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing to keep in mind is we normally like to look at the demographic data, and the demographic data is not available. It typically will be available when they release the school grade, and this year's school grade is only for informational purposes only, and it probably won't come out till late winter is what the state of Florida has said. Any other questions? Okay, so the math results. When we look at the math data, we notice that Brevard outperformed the state in all grade levels except for 3, 6, 7. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. No, we outperformed the state in grades 3, 6, 7, and geometry. Again, sixth grade is 13 percentage points above the state. Keeping in mind that we never want to see growth in when we're looking at Rankin State, we always want to see the decline. So when you look at 7th grade, it's the only grade level that we see an improvement in our Rankin State. We went from 19th in the state to 16th in the state.
Right, so Rankin State, we want a lower number. Lower number
Yes.
is the best.
And this is based on the 67 districts that we talked about. There are currently more districts than that because you have the FLVS and all of that, but none of us that do the ranking take those into consideration. We just do the regular 67 districts.
That's horrible.
Again, this is the same format that we use where it shows the scale score, the percent at level 3 and above, the percent at level 1, and then your Rankin State for the last 3 years, and then your percent change. Keeping in mind that level 1, we want to see the negative. We always want to see negative in level 1, so this is great news for Brevard because we declined our percent at level 1 in every grade level with the exception of geometry. And when you look at level 3 and above, we also did really well with the exception of 5th and geometry, which we saw an increase. A decrease in the percent of level 3 and above. And this is by grade, by school. 30 schools improved, 13 schools improved double digits, which includes West Side, Enterprise, and Surfside increased by over 20 percentage points, with West Side increasing by 26 percentage points and also decreasing their percent at level 1 by 27 percentage points. 34 other schools also decreased their percentage of students scoring at level 1. 4 schools ranked in the top 100, with Freedom 7 being 19th. When we look at 4th grade, 26 schools improved their level scoring at level 3. 9 schools had double-digit gains, with Sea Park, Columbia, Riviera, and Discovery with over 20 points. Sea Park with 30 percentage points gains and 18 percentage point decline in level 1, and Columbia with 29 percentage points increase and 22 percentage points decline in level 1. 5 schools were ranked in the top, with Freedom 7 and Manatee ranking at 32nd. 5th grade, 26 schools improved their percentage of students scoring at level 3 and above. 9 schools increased the percentage of school with Harbor City scoring 24 percentage points and declining their percent at level 1 by 24. 25 other schools with Palm Bay, Gulfview, Harbor City with more than 20 percentage points decline. 3 schools also ranked at the top. Surfside and Freedom 7 ranked 55 in the state. 6th grade, 28 schools improved their percentage of students scoring at level 3. 11 increased by double digits. Cambridge Elementary by over 23 percentage points. And they also had a decline of level 1 students by 11. Southlake and Riviera by 16 percentage points decline of their students, their lowest performing students, which is your level 1. 1 school ranked at the top, West Melbourne School of Science ranked 96th in the state of Florida. 7th grade, 12 schools improved. 6 schools had double-digit increases, with Stone and Hoover by 14 percentage points. 10 schools reduced their percentage of students scoring at level 1, Stone and Jackson by 10 percentage points. 2 schools were in the top, Edgewood at number 1, West Shore at 12. 8th grade math, 12 schools improved, 8 had double digits, with McNair at 36 percentage points and Jefferson at 32. 11 schools reduced the percentage of students scoring at level 1, with Space Coast Junior Senior High School at 28 and 6 others by more than 20 percentage points. Algebra. Algebra is another one of those that this is a new test, which will also be, we will receiving the cut scores once the state board approves them. Algebra and geometry. So 14 schools improved their percentages, 3 with double digits, with Jackson having the largest increase by 23. 14 schools reduced their percentage at scoring at level 1, with Jackson at 22 percentage points. So Jackson had an increase of 23 and a decrease in level 1 of 22. 1 school ranked at the top, West Shore was 82nd in the state. When you look at geometry, 14 schools improved their percentages. 3 had double digits, with Madison at 16 percentage points, Bayside and Merritt Island with more than 10. When you're looking at level, I'm sorry, that was double digits. When you look at level 1, Merritt Island and Bayside by 11 percentage point decline. 2 schools were at the top, Delora and Madison, both ranked number 1. Questions when it comes to math? Science. When we look at science, we notice that Brevard outperformed the state in 5th and 8th grade. However, we saw a little bit of a dip in biology. This is our ranking state in science, and as you can see, we have increased our ranking state. I'm sorry, this is, yes, the ranking state. We've increased our ranking state in 5th and in biology. However, we saw a little bit of a decline in 8th grade.
So just to remind, because as I'm looking at these ranking states, I'm trying to figure out, because we had with this kind of a new number, we haven't really looked at that so much before this spring. So we are number 10 in size, right?
11th.
11. Sometimes it's people
Well,
say.
it all depends. I normally use Survey 3, so as soon as the Survey 3 data, I will re-rank us again. But
10,
as
11.
of Survey 2, we were 11th.
Right. Do you know where we are rank as far as free reduced lunch percentage?
Not off the top of my head, but I can certainly take a note and give you that information.
Yeah, because that makes a difference too. Because everybody say, okay, St. Johns County is number 1, but I remember looking at that data. St. Johns County has the lowest percentage of free and reduced lunch kids in the state. So to the point, remember you asking John Carr for that data. I mean, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So would you send
when
that
I
to
pulled
us?
some data in the spring, just elementary school free and reduced lunch put us at 13th.
We're 13th.
13th.
So it's a good number to kind of keep in mind when we talk about that rank and and we want to be number 1 in everything, but it's a good number to keep in mind as we're looking at these ranks.
And this is the comparison again: level 1, level 3 to 5, level 1, ranking state and mean scale score. 5th grade increase in performance. And there is a second typo on this. This should also have been 5th grade decreased their performance at level 1. So when you look at 5th grade, you'll see that they decreased. They had a change from 55 to 57, which is a positive change for level 1, for level 3 and above. And they also saw a positive change in level 1. For science, 32 schools improved, 11 double-digit increase, Apollo and Enterprise by 22 percentage points. 32 schools reduced their percent at level 1, MIMS reduced by 33 percentage points.
Wow.
9 schools ranked at the top 100, West Melbourne School of Science, Vieira Elementary, Freedom 7, ranked at 25. Eighth grade science, 7 schools improved their percentage of students scoring at level 3. 1 increased the percentage of students double digits, and that was Brevard Virtual again. 7 schools reduced the percent of students scoring at level 1, Madison by 10 percentage points. 3 schools ranked at the top, West Shore ranked 13th. Biology, 5 schools improved, Titusville by 7 percentage points. 3 schools reduced the percent of level 1, with Cocoa High School at 9 percentage points. 3 schools ranked at the top, Jefferson and McNair ranked number 1. Because they're middle schools and they normally do the biology. So they did biology this year and they did exceptionally well.
So then, did those 8th graders not take the 8th grade FSA?
They don't take the science, that is correct. They have to take 1 science, so if they're
Right.
in biology, that's the biology they take.
Okay.
And since they're in biology, that also counts as your accelerated points for middle school. So they get the science points in addition to the middle school acceleration.
Are Jefferson and McNair our only middle schools that are offering biology?
I am not sure, that would be a Dr. Sullivan question.
They are the only 2.
The issue also is that our high schools don't get those credits.
Correct.
Yes.
Now those students, when they matriculate up to high school, there is no
Right.
points for them.
They're not right. They're not
So they don't-
helping.
It actually hurts the high schools.
Yeah.
Right.
To not offer it there, but it helps the middle school.
Yes.
So we just need all junior seniors.
And when we look at social studies is civics and history. Brevard outperformed the state in civics. We're just a little below the state in U.S. history. When we look at history and our rank in state, we notice that we've increased the rank in state in civics and in U.S. history.
Which is not the direction we want to go.
That is correct. That that is correct. So when we look at social studies, we notice that we saw a change in the percent at level 3 and above, a negative change, and we also saw a negative change in the percent of students scoring at level 1. So we never want to see a positive in level 1, and we never want to see a negative in level 3 and above. When we look at civics, 4 schools demonstrated an increase. Andrew Jackson by 13 percentage points. 2 schools reduced the percent at level 1, Space Coast and Cocoa Beach. 2 schools ranked at the top, West Shore 16th and Edgewood 36.
You know, we have a former state representative in Jackson. That's pretty.
U.S. history, 2 schools improved their percentage of students scoring at level 3. Mel High had a 6 percentage point increase. 4 schools reduced the students scoring at level 1, with Rockledge at 5 percentage points. 5 schools ranked at the top, with West Shore and Edgewood ranked 20th. Are there any questions?
So much to digest.
So Dr. Rendell made a good point of this is for our ELA and math, this is our first year of looking at FAST. So basically you're kind of doing a little apples to oranges, because when we look at 21, 22, 23, we're looking at FSA, FAST, except for 10th grade. 10th grade's doing still FSA, right?
As of right now,
FAST is still FAST.
we're actually looking at the same information. It's a different test, but it's the same. So a level
ranking.
3 is a level 3. The only thing that changed was what Dr. Randall was saying is the actual assessment. This is the first year for our actual assessment. So although it's a different assessment, the scale score, so what a level 3 is, it remained constant for the 3.
So when we look at the schools that had the biggest growth, and some of them had big growth because the year in between they had huge dips.
Correct.
So I'm glad you provided the 3 years, because there were some that had those double digits, but it's because 21, they were actually close to where they were this year, had a huge fall off and then came back.
Yes.
Some of them still trended in the right direction, but so I'm glad you provided that. But so when we, but you can still kind of look for the ones who have continued that trend. No matter what test it was, we know there was something happening there that was good and maybe replicable, and
Yes.
and you know. Okay, good, good.
So that's why it's really important for us to compare ourselves to other districts, because it gives us the perspective of what are these schools. So if we really wanted to take it to another level, then you can compare Title I schools to other Title I schools in high-performing districts to see, are they performing better than we are? Are they growing at a faster rate? Because when you look at the mean for the state, there's so many, you've got hundreds of thousands of students, but when you're comparing all the top districts and you're seeing the same districts above us, and I can certainly provide that information because I have it. You can see Miami-Dade is scoring above us, and they have 300,000 students. That gives you an indicator that there may be something that we need to look at. So that's why I think that's why Dr. Rendell wanted me to make sure that we looked at the Rankin State, so that we have a perspective as to, based on the districts, if a district is historically growing and you see another one that is not, that is growing and then dipping and growing and then dipping, what's the difference? What are the different districts doing differently that is causing that? So you could start digging deeper to start helping.
Right, right. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just want to make a couple comments. When I first saw the data from NATA, the first thing I thought of was there's a lot of reasons to celebrate.
Yes.
There are a lot of schools that made some big jumps, you know. So that's good stuff. We need to reward, recognize that, reward those schools for that hard work. Especially we saw some schools that faced some significant challenges and were able to move some student achievement. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Overall, though, as a district, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because especially when we start looking at it, Rankin State, we're not where we need to be in most grade levels in most assessments. Sixth grade continues to be our big, strong point. So we'll probably never move sixth grade out of elementary school. Seems to work, and then we saw some bumps in seventh grade this year, so that's encouraging. But we also saw some places where, we were above the state average, but we're looking in the mid-20s and 30s as far as Rankin State, and that's not where we should be. So, that gives us fuel to do the work.
That's
to say,
absolutely
okay,
right.
what is somebody else doing that is providing better results than what we're getting? So that's what we're going to be tasked at next. Like Nada said, the subgroup data is not available yet, and we would love to take a look at that. As soon as we get that, we'll do another presentation.
Okay, thank you.
This may be a Cindy question, or maybe a Nada/Cindy question, but we talked about this is a norming year, right? So they're going to release the school district grades and the school grades. Are they going to do it at the school level or just district level?
No, they're going to do it at the school level.
Just for informational purposes?
Informational purposes only,
right.
yes.
But they did budget, I think, if I remember from a budget presentation, the reward dollars, I forgot the name of it right now.
A+.
Yeah, so
School recognition.
the school recognition funds. So how are we going to do school recognition fund, if they're just for informational purposes?
Yeah, my memory may be wrong, but I think the last time we did a baseline year, they did not do school recognition money.
Okay.
And the other thing to keep in mind when they release the school grades, it will not have learning gains.
Right.
So those categories are always negatively impact our lowest socioeconomic schools.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of our schools rely on those learning gains
So
for
that
their
it would
points.
put them at a huge disadvantage.
Yes.
Yeah. So it makes sense. Yeah, I even think, even since I've been on the board, I think we had a year that we didn't have, I guess it was COVID year. We didn't do reward, whatever the name is. I just forgot it again, even though you just
School
school
recognition
recognition funds. We didn't do those the following year.
Yep.
This
So,
year we should get them somewhere.
yeah.
Let's go make an argument.
If they budgeted for it, then they should put it out.
Yep.
Yeah, because I thought she said it in the budget thing. I thought I said it was in there.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. I know how much work that is, and I wanted to say thank you for all your dedication and stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a whiz, so now I know who to call when we need to get to it, so thank you. Anybody else have anything real quick?
No, I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Here it is. Let's go, mister. I got to get out of here.
So, again, I've had the pleasure to work with NATA the last few years as testing coordinator. That you always feared that call from NATA, which when I heard that, I just have to say it while it's on record here. I never felt that. It was like a different NATA they were talking about. So, as long as you said, is things are not on fire. And when I said, this is on fire, and I said it, she goes, that's not a fire. You can handle it. So she's cool, calm, probably the most informative person that I've talked to at, in that situation. So thank you for all this work.
Well,
I know
thank you
work
for
hard.
that. I appreciate
I've seen
that.
the org charts, and you've got the least number of people to do a maximum job of importance. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Moving on, the next topic is to revision to policy 6180.01, allocation and use of sales surtax, and new administrative procedure 6180.01. Dr. Rendell, if you want to just talk about it, I mean, the bottom line is that this is state statute. This is bringing us in line with House Bill 1259. Talks about some of the things inside there. I think you guys have probably all taken a look at it. It's not anything that we can change, right?
I think Sue has the whole PowerPoint presentation. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I apologize, Sue. I didn't know you were going to go through this, so I apologize.
Sue does not have a PowerPoint presentation.
Miss Sue, we were talking about having a meeting on
There's no
Monday
goats.
that we would, so this coming Monday, we were talking about possibly having a meeting and inviting you to it,
Oh,
just so you know.
that'd be wonderful. I will not be attending, but please feel free to have one.
She keeps
Have
saying,
all the meetings,
I'm leaving on
please."
Friday,
Yes.
leave me alone. This has been a date that I have known for like 4 months, so anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Just real quickly, there's two reasons for this modification of the policy. One is the change in state statute, and you see that relative to the allocation of funds to charter schools that we discussed earlier. The second is that we don't have policy around the interest that is earned on sales tax revenue that has been invested. We've been acting as if we had policy and keeping those funds segregated and such, but we thought this was an opportunity since we're revising the policy. Let's go ahead and get this in policy and then develop an administrative procedure around this. So basically what the second part of this says is that when interest is earned on sales tax revenue, and it is net interest, so sometimes there's ups and downs in terms of earnings. Once it is closed out for the year and it is applied, if it is earned on the 2014 sales tax program, those funds will be allocated basically to contingency, and we allocate those on a per project basis. I think you all see those occasionally coming across on your agendas. And then if it is interest earned on the 2020 program, those funds will be allocated in accordance with the normal allocation of 15% each to security and educational technology and 70% to facilities. And then just cleaning up the language on the use of surtax to include interest being used the same way as regular surtax revenue. So that's the policy change. And then I just want to run through the administrative procedure real quickly. Basically, this just says that sales tax is part of the board's portfolio and will be invested in accordance with board policy. Explain that when we earn interest on either of the two sales tax programs, they'll be recorded separately, reported to the ICOC, summarized in the ICOC report to the board, and that interest will be allocated and used in accordance with board policy. So pretty simple administrative procedure. Both of these have been reviewed by the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee back in June, and they recommended moving forward.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you for cleaning it up.
Yep. Any other questions?
How much are we talking about from 2014 that when does that run out, do you suspect?
We still have, I think it's about 10-ish million of 2014 revenue. Winding down a couple of programs like the Covered Canopy program is a 2014 program. We've allocated money and projects have been under budget, so money's coming back. We're finishing up some security. So I'm budgeting to finish that program out this year, but honestly, it'll probably be a year and a half before we completely spend down 2014.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much,
Yep.
Ms. Sue. Good luck on your vacation.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
we're going to miss you.
Yeah. Should have some fun while she's gone. Should put some
Go paint a school or something.
We'll go
What are you
build some
gonna do?
buildings. We'll do
paint
some-
her,
build
paint
some
her
buildings.
office like paint or put jello in a stapler or
Throw
something
some walls
like
up
that.
somewhere or
A
something.
tent.
No permits or whatever. All right, next topic is School Board Policy 2431, interscholastic athletes. This one, if you guys take a look at it, this was so that the main component to this is that we were out of compliance for the heat stroke, and we needed to put that in so that when our kids start competing in athletics at the beginning of the year, they'll be there. Plus, the other component was to make sure that our basketball teams, which we had that consistent, that other weird way of making kids play, can now compete with on the FHSAA level so that we can have competitive sports for our middle school. So it's all just kind of state statute. There's no real components. There's some big conversation we'll have around the administrative procedures at the end of the month, but this is pretty much just bringing us into line with what we have.
Well, the middle school thing isn't FHSA. That's a Brevard specific.
But it inhibits, if we would have stayed with what we had, it would severely inhibit us for competing against other teams outside of the county. So if we're going to move towards that, we didn't want to be inhibited towards that. And that's what we were saying. We wanted to expand sports. So that's all. That means that they all play. It just doesn't mean that there's this weird, you play this much, you play that much, that everybody has to play each half. That's it. All right. And then these are just policies to talk about. So if there's no other questions on that one, the next one is no changes. I just brought it forward because we needed to say that we reviewed it, and it went forward. It's 7511, media broadcast of student athletic competitions. That one right there is just, I asked to have it put on the agenda because we want to talk about the administrative procedures on the 27th, but this way we get both of the policies moving prior to school starting. That's all. But there's no changes to the other one. It's just brought forward so we can say we reviewed it during our policies. That's it.
Okay.
All right. And if you guys have any questions on either of them, we'll do that.
No, I don't have any
That's what I was
questions.
saying. I was trying to
I've
move
looked
quick
at
for you.
these.
I'm sorry. Ms. Kimber, you good?
I am.
Okay. All right.
Is Ms.
Dr.
Jenkins
Rendell?
still on the phone?
I'm done.
Ms. Jenkins, do you have any questions? Anyone to make any comments before we leave?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.